R&D base that we have. Even if it's that very thin, we do not have enough funding for that also. So 0.7% of GDP we do for R&D, which is very, very less compared to China and US. But then, the private sector participation in the funding is also very less. In other countries, if it is 3 to 4% of GDP, actually private participation is also very high. Here, our private participation is also low. So these are some of the areas which will actually impact the emerging technologies like CGT. So what, I'll not take much time because you all are experts and I'm here to actually listen the conversation and listen some of the points, the takeaways from here, which I can implement. So the sessions, actually, what the organizers have planned, is the first is the clinical innovators and affordable care. So there will be some lead discussants in this area, and then we will open it for discussion. Second is ecosystem synergy, support from innovators, regulators, and policymakers to enable the CGT journey from concept to commercialization. The third is manufacturing models, advancing next generation manufacturing, the role of integrated biomanufacturing hubs to strengthen India's position in advanced therapeutics. And the fourth is sustainability and talent. Even if we have everything, I think regulatory also, even if it's all, we must have good manpower and talent to handle this kind of highly technical area. So building a skilled workforce and capacity to sustain a competitive CGT ecosystem. So let's start actually. So I'll ask our vice, to co-chair to actually say a few words and maybe coordinate who are the lead discussants. You can name them. You can name them, and then we can start from there. Yeah.
Thank you, Jitendra. First, Dipanvita, Jitendra, Vishu just vanished. Vishu and the IKP team, thank you for having us here. Sunday afternoon, and look at this room. It's full, so thanks to all of you for coming here, and of course, thanks to Dr. Jitendra here for taking the time. He's rushing off to North India. In the morning, my name tag had just BFI. I think in the afternoon session, they've also added Big Tech, which is great. There are, the chair mentioned the 4 areas as nudged by Vishu. I will just, he said we are here to learn, absolutely. 3-4 years back, the US government, through their taxpayers' money, invited me to go and see the US for 3 weeks on the Biomedical Research and Innovation program called IVLP. And we were taken to Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. And that's the place, they call it the Silicon. Like Silicon Valley, it's the Silicon Valley, so Cell and Gene Therapy Valley. That university itself has close to 70. Of course, Professor Carl June is from there. So you can see how leadership has cascade effect on that. So, and it was amazing to see what Philly does to CGT, right? And you might want to see how do we build India along that line. Can we build a Genome Valley? Can we build a Silicon Valley as well here? So that's number one. Of course, Kathleen Carico was there too, if you remember her. My second point is, of the 4, infrastructure that we need, what we call as scalability issue. How do you do it for advanced therapeutics like CGT? I would love to hear that. Then the biggest thing is, when biotech was coming, you remember this whole host of institutions starting BTech, biotechnology, right? So how do you build a curricula that actually industry doesn't need to train them for another 2 years to be prepared to do work in that industry? How do we do that? And I'll end, because time is short. While I was in Cambridge, the then Vice Chancellor used to say that Cambridge is a safe place to do risky science. So how do we build such safe places here in India that can do risky science? And of course, top of the pyramid, we have our MD BIRAC here, who can then hear this, and we can have some actionable points as to take forward for IKP and for all of us. Thank you. So the first one, the clinical innovators and affordable care. This hopefully won't come as a surprise issue, but we would love to hear as lead discussants from Dr. Suresh Atili, Dr. Arun Anand, Dr. Ramesh Kekunya. May we request 3 to 4 minutes each. I said that in the first round morning. The power empowered by my chair. I'm the timekeeper, as always, so please don't be angry at me if I say your time is up. The second is ecosystem synergy, which is how do you build all of this together? How do you connect the dots? We have Dr. Abdul Rab, all right, sitting on the right. GSK Krishnan, an industry leader from ex-Novozymes, now Able. And manufacturing models is the third. We'd like to hear from Dr. Kishore Kunapalli and Dr. Dinesh Kundu. And then finally, sustainability and talent is Professor Anil Kaul and Professor Pavan Dhar and Professor Dr. Anu Uppal. And the few startups here, whenever they raise their hands, they will be given the priority. So Baiva Bhatia and others, if you want to do. As Chair mentioned, we'll first begin with the clinical innovators and affordable care, the pivotal role of hospitals, clinical facilities in enabling patient access and integrating CGT treatments into clinical practice. I'd love to hear from Dr. Suresh Atili first, and then we'll take it forward. 4 minutes starting now.
Much earlier than that. Thank you very much for the opportunity. See, I'm a medical oncologist by profession. So whenever any new therapy comes to the clinical practice, the most challenging thing is managing the patient expectations, both in terms of cost, side effects, what they expect. They expect cure versus control versus comfort, and how to manage the logistics. Sometimes it is not easy to do those things. So whenever we go back and then loop back to the industry, so these things we always keep it in mind that it should be affordable. Obviously, it's the right balance between manufacturing versus the patient. And side effect, it's the physicians and the patient and family, all three will bear the brunt of the side effects. And how to anticipate those things is always a challenge. So with the new deep tech and other things, I think this is not a major challenge with newer in silico and other techniques. And the major problem is once we give the feedback, to get it corrected is taking long time. So if we say that we expected this, but this happened, or this unexpected side effect happened, I don't think it is easy for the innovator or the scientist to correct it immediately. But the moment they correct it, the CDSO will take 3 more years. So this cycle, there should be something which is more practical, is what we always feel is, that's like patient, physician and family, that ecosystem, which is the end user, I think that's where we expect something coming good from those things. So besides these things, I do sit on the IBSCs and other boards. So I understand the challenges the companies face and the researchers face, but we need to come with solutions. I think once we chart down the problem statements, we can move about that and then just do that. Thank you very much.
Okay, wonderful. You kept to time, so you get extra points. We'll go to Dr. Arun Anand.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for the chair and co-chairs for including me in this, as well as the organizers. So I've been at the receiving end and at the giving end of both sides of being a physician. The receiving end is the fact that I've received therapies that have been developed by others, and the giving side is I've also helped develop therapies that go to hospitals and physicians to use. And my board says ex-Epinal, so that should carry for some weightage on taking one of the products that has been developed in India to market and getting it to patients in India. There are 4 topics or subtopics that I would like to cover in 3 minutes. The first one is and this all pertain to cell and gene therapies as a class by itself. The first one is that the time to clinical impact is very, very different for cell and gene therapy products as opposed to products which are large molecules or small molecules. And part of the reason this is so is because most of the CGTs were started off in academic hospitals or academic researchers associated with hospitals. And so there was a faster traction point rather than doing large-ended development efforts. It was more quick and early development that get to patients fast. And those typically ended up with a lot of patients having expectations, to Dr. Suresh's point, that they would either participate in trials or have the access to cell therapy modalities earlier than they typically would have achieved it in certain countries. For example, if you look at the US, access to cell therapies have now become far more earlier lines than it was in traditional large molecule development. The same is not so in India because of the fact that first-in-class treatments are generally not fully advanced in India. They're waited until the patients are reached as point of no return, at which point they will be eligible to receive some of these therapies even on trials. Second is, from a clinical point of view, cell therapies and gene therapies have an enormously high degree of personalization. And that's the fundamental difference between these types of therapies and what you typically find as large molecules or small molecules developed for a larger population base. These are very, very subcategorized to very intrinsic mutations, intrinsic gene defects, or in the case of certain types of leukemias and lymphomas, a specific targeted population of cells which are likely to get benefit from having these kinds of treatments. Now, the moment you start talking of increased personalization, it also means, on the corollary, a reduced risk, because you're not providing this to a large population to have untoward side effects that have to be studied in a large population, easily disseminated. That's not the kind of class of therapies. They're very personalized, given only in hospitals and only to patients who are being seen by specialists in the field. Which also means that the regulatory sandbox around the development of these therapies can be modified from the current scheme, which allows for fail early, fail fast, is not something that the current regulators accept. That allows certain degree of experimentation, certain degree of risk-taking in personalized therapies is possible because it's not a population effect. Thirdly, this has now been acknowledged that cell and gene therapies is a new era of how medicine itself gets practiced, but also how these therapies can be developed. Like about 30 years ago, you developed a drug which people were chasing the largest possible population effects. Now people are choosing the deepest possible effects, which means that even if I can cure even 1,000 people, that's much more valuable than trying to cure half-heartedly 100,000 people. And lastly, value for outcome is something which I think in the era of personalized medicine, especially cell and gene therapies, I've often spoken about this, contrary sometimes to government claims, but I've been trying to, while serving on the committee for precision biotherapeutics, try and advise the fact that when you're looking at outcomes, it has to be value-based outcomes. Cheapest is not necessarily the best, because finally what makes a difference to patients is if that therapy works long enough and deep enough for them to have meaningful impact on their quality of life and on survival. Cell and gene therapies, and now the expansion of indications is going beyond oncology to autoimmune disorders, a very new area and era of work. Autoimmune disorders are people who've been living for the last 30 years with the same disease. It's not like oncology where they've suddenly been diagnosed and they have outcomes in less than 5 years. So this difference in thinking has to apply to regulatory sandboxes and to development milestones, as well as you think about it from an investment and funding point of view. Lastly, two things which I hope those hearing can understand. Regulators have to move from being licensors to regulators. And government entities which are funding have to move from being funders to investors.
Wonderfully said. Thank you. Dr. Ramesh Kekunia.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm an ophthalmologist. I completely agree with the previous speakers, what they said. I'm not going to repeat that for the sake of time. The first part, I think the topic is for innovation and affordability. I think in India, more and more hospitals have to get into this act of innovation in their own way. Whichever hospital, either brain or eye or kidney, they should get into this habit of cell and gene therapy, because genetic testing has become more affordable. That's the genesis for this. From our own experience, when you do this genetic test, patients are coming with the answers. Okay, you are doing this genetic test. When can we expect? Maybe it will take 10 years or 20 years. This is their first question. So, Eli Prasad also in the giving and taking, both aspect, we are seeing more and more local philanthropists coming up with the problem. Can you find a solution for my blindness? With that, we are doing 2 trials in Eli Prasad Institute right now. We have just begun. So money is huge when you create something. But when you create, the next level should become easier and it should be affordable. Like, for example, in eye, some of the treatments are up to the tune of crores, which is almost impossible to give it and even to suggest our patients. And from a professional point of view, we always say, detect the disease early, so that at earlier stage of degeneration, we can push in this cell or gene therapy. But 2 challenges I would like to say here is, because more and more we are going to get into this field, because this is inevitable, because drugs they have limitation. We are going to go into cell and gene therapy because we have come far way in the tissue therapy. For example, transplantation. We are still evolving, right? It's not that we have plenty of tissues available. So same way we are evolving, but we are a paradoxical country. We have to go into the next level. So challenge number 1 is the regulation aspect. Challenge number 2 is, I would say, more, maybe in this hall, more people collaborate, more faster we can come in. Because every hospital, from a clinical point of view, they have their own limitation. So probably 25 people sitting here can sit together, and then obviously there will be money involved. More collaboration, more therapy will come out from India. And I think more and more hospitals we should identify as a nodal center for these kind of things. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh. Before you open it up, the chair has mentioned that we can open it up for 7 minutes. So anybody can raise your hand. Please state your name, your designation of the organization, and then any intervention that you want to have. Before you do that, let me just point to 2 people here. One is here, right on the right-hand side, Dr. Abdul Rab. He's from, because Dr. Ramesh mentioned philanthropy, so he is the CEO of ITRI. You can talk to him later. And my own boss, my CEO, is here as well, Dr. Gaurav Singh. He's a clinician himself. I'm sitting at the back. He runs the CEO of Blockchain for Impact. So thank you. Okay, anybody who wants to raise, yeah, go ahead. Can we have some mic here? Yeah, your name, your organization, and your intervention.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sarath. I'm founder and CEO of Boltzmann Labs. We build AI platforms for life sciences research. See, last year there was a competition in CGT binder design from University of Texas Austin, where we won in the top 10 CGT binder design also. See, what we are from our side, what we want to convey is that we need the underlying technologies. So a lot of people have talked about how the CGTs we can bring into the market, regulatory things. And there are underlying technologies, because the biotech and sciences are driven by technologies currently. We should have something more importantly. Currently, Stanford and Arc Institute conducting a challenge in virtual cell. Understanding how the cell will be behaving, how we'll be modeling that in silico using AI. How we are building these technologies. India also should be taking that step, building the technologies that will be enabling the CGT. So to create cell therapies, we have to understand the cell. Till now, we are able to do molecular dynamics and all these things, but overall cell modeling is still very difficult. Lot of tech bio companies are behind that. We should be able to promote that, and we should be able to create a consortium building the technologies on the base, so that we will be able to come up with much more.
These are great points. Yeah. So what you're saying is that look at fundamental tools and parts for synthetic biology.
Yes.
Who is doing that in India? Great. Anybody else?
My name is Dr. Moshumi Shah. I am representing AIIMS Patna Incubation Center as CEO. So in AIIMS Patna, what we see that we have a huge load of patients, and this is a government hospital. So I would like to suggest, or maybe there is a possibility if the incubation centers collaborate and then we work on the CGTA, because what happens, CGTA needs a lot of expertise as well as lot of funding for the startups as well as for the hospitals also, and maybe as they have mentioned very rightly that we need a very common nodal center where the work can be regulated, because when we are talking about the preclinical and the clinical trial along with managing the patient load by the doctors, so it's a difficult task specifically in a government hospital like AIIMS. So in that respect, can the incubation hub come together who have those expertise and much more funding in this field?
Wonderful. So again, what Dr. Ramesh said about collaboration coming together. I didn't get your name. Can you repeat?
Dr. Moshumi Shah.
Dr. Moshumi Shah. Okay. Vaibhav, my good friend.
Thank you.
But that's what I think.
Yeah. So Vaibhav Bhatia, I'm CEO of Lamarck Biotech, and I just can share something that Vadi is on my right. He's from Agilent, and I think CGT is new for us, but I can tell you nobody makes a mass spec in India, right? I recently bought 2 years back a microscope. We don't get a good microscope being made in India yet. Microscope was invented long back. We will never be able to make a good cell gene therapy in India if we don't focus.
I mean, I've heard Ambala is the place for microscope.
I got that microscope from there. I'm still fighting with them. No.
Okay.
No, what I'm trying to say is there are two important things we are missing here, and I respect all the things that we have talked about, but we are too close to borrowing still. We have to focus on two things. One is future. My previous boss used to tell me, first do what others have done. So I'm happy that we are trying to do what others have done, but that's not the goal. We will miss the glory of the future if we focus on what others have done. We have to think about what are the problems, what others are not solving, and we can think there, and we have to think 10 years beforehand. That's one thing. And second thing I tell for biopharma 5 years back, that this is the same room, I believe, people, if you don't have 10 years experienced people sitting in this room, I can assure you very few people can enter the clean room today and make a lentiviral vector with the right transduction unit that you need. I know all the labs today. I recently have been to Europe for like a month, and we have a technology. Even in Europe, it's difficult to find. Okay, in India, we don't have people who can make those viruses with that kind of efficiency. So we need to find a policy. The answer is we need to find a policy which can retain people when we train them. We cannot borrow those people. We will make them, but we have to retain them. That's one thing. And second, we need to fund those ideas which are for future also. Thank you.
Great. Yes, Sonia?
I'm just adding on to your comments. See the
your name and your...
Okay, so I thought you have already introduced me. So Sonia Gandhi from BIRAC. I'm heading the Regulatory Affairs and Policy Advocacy Division at BIRAC. So I'm just continuing from your point that we need some kind of policy for retaining the manpower, right? So what I believe is we also need some kind of standards or some kind of SOPs or rules or guidelines specifically for the industries where we have actually charted down all the processes. Because if you look at the US and the EMA and other countries, we have very specific guidance documents. But in India, I don't want to talk about CDSCO because it's a totally different ball game. But in India, currently we have only two guidelines. First is for the stem cell, national guideline for stem cells, and the second one is the national guideline for gene-edited products. So both of these are 2017 and 2019 developed. So we quickly need a kind of revision from CDSCO. So what I meant from that is not only the processes, the full system, CMC, preclinical, everything, but small things like lentivirus. You gave an example of lentivirus manufacturing. We don't have a specific guidance document. We don't have anything related to plasmid manufacturing. So we need to start from the basics. So that's a recommendation from my side, that we need to start from N-1 reagents, basically the raw materials, right from the SOPs, the standards, and then we can move forward towards the national guidelines, revision of the national guidelines. And the third level will be the processes at CDSCO, where we usually promote the pre-IND consultations and the regulatory sandbox, which sir also mentioned, Jitendra sir.
Sonia, while you are holding mic, you can also talk about RAPA division and what you are doing for innovators to navigate the complex regulatory challenges that they're facing.
Nice. So from the RAPA side, we have actually announced 2 programs. First Hub is a quite old program, which is a single window platform for the startups, innovators, the CDSCO, ICMR, BIS, there are around 5-6 agencies who are part of this platform. Any startup who has any query related to regulations, they can come and they can ask their queries directly from the regulators, from the authorities, BIS. If they have any questions about the standards, they can directly ask from the BIS. If they are facing any problem with respect to the application process at CDSCO. Of course, there is a PRO office at CDSCO, but we are quite aware that it's very difficult to actually get in touch with the CDSCO officers. And knowing the division exact officer from the CDSCO specific divisions is also very difficult. So that is why this first hub, which is a single window platform, is available for the startups and innovators. They can anytime virtually submit a query on the BIRAC website, and we will fix an appointment with the regulators. So this is one of the programs. The second one is the Refine. So Refine is something which is an advanced level of facilitation. So we will be announcing the first call very soon, which will actually select some of the startups for hand-holding, right from the application stage till they get the approvals, the manufacturing authorization and all. So that's under the conceptualization phase, but definitely in near future we will see that specific program also.
Thanks.
Yes, sure.
Can I just add a few?
Yeah, Ambarish, go ahead first and then I will.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead first.
Okay. So to ma'am's comment, I think maybe that's a word for everybody around. So I have closely seen the evolution of Lonza as a CGT head, and what I have seen there is that what we ignore completely is the service sector. So we are all talking about the product development, about the cell as a product, but we are not talking about the service sector, which is example, the supply of GMP grade nucleic acid now, or HQ nucleic acid. Hardly Aldevron like companies, they lead in it. It's a global scarcity. It's a low investment business, while the return on investment would be fast. So, but there again, but it requires some investment. So I think the investors have to look into it if they can fund a service sector like system. Similarly, like automation in media or something, but this kind of a system has to be developed, because otherwise we'll enter into a vicious like time loop, like IP loop. We will be borrowing somebody's IP and still we will entering into our own IP. So we'll never come out of it.
Very nice point.
Sure, Arun,
Right.
you continue.
Dr. Ambarish is from ISER Tirupati, those of you don't know. Okay. Arun, 30 seconds maybe.
I think this may be the last question
Yeah,
for,
sure.
this one, then we'll go to the next.
I wanted to highlight the fact that, since the chair mentioned about, China and US looking at cell therapies and gene therapies far more advanced and looking at advanced therapies, there has been an interesting shift in dynamics. As if you notice, the last 2 years, China has overtaken the US, not just in terms of the kind of products being developed, but also clinical data for them and the investments that go into cell and gene therapies. Now, part of the success story behind this leapfrogging by China has been their way of looking at regulations. And their regulations have been decentralized to give the power to the local hospital IRBs to take the calls on certain programs taking forward, especially if they are personalized in nature. The point that I wanted to make was, while there are guidelines from 2017 and 2019, our regulators seem to look at them as law and not like guidelines. And therefore, because the idea of developing those guidelines was to give a common framework program for developers to understand what it would need to develop some of these programs going forward. But that becomes a constraint box if you start applying it like law. it has to be something that is a minimum hygiene, but as people progress and evolution of science happens, you also expect the regulations to take those risk-based assessments to drive the future of those programs forward. So risk-based assessments, guidelines not as law, and to allow more regulatory freedom for the local ethics committees and state FDAs, if necessary, to accelerate development.
I fully agree with you, and I'll just make one comment here. See, US and China, I was just going through the database search. So you're right, China has overtaken in number of trials and all within the last 2 to 3 years. And how they have done, it's very intriguing that most of the multinational companies are in US, not in China. So how they have shifted the dynamics of new innovations with the startups and new companies. They say new co. So there's a concept called new co where, they encourage new companies and government also funds, and also they've created a alternative mechanism to multinational companies. And the number of new molecules in multinational companies are drying compared to China's new model of new cos, actually. So of course they associate with multinationals also, but the number of new molecules filed by these startups are huge actually in China. Yeah.
Thank you. The chair has mentioned we should move to the next one, which is manufacturing models. Before we do that, I know many of you know each other, but just let me point, Subramani, Subbu, Ramachandrapa is there on the back. Dr. Nageshwar must be there somewhere. Biker Therapeutics again is doing. Kundan Thakur is already there anyway. Okay, manufacturing models, and we'd love to hear from Dr. Kishore Kunapalli first. 4 minutes, sir.
Thank you for having me. And it's a great pleasure.
A bit louder. Is it switched on?
Oh?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me here. And to Dipanita Madam and Jitendra. I'm Dr. Kishore Konapalli. I'm representing Pulse Pharma. We have been working in the space of CGT since last 5 years in Atal Incubation Center, CCMB. Before coming to the challenges of the manufacturing with respect to the CGT, I would like to bring to the notice of the auditorium the basic challenges that actually we are facing in developing a product and the kind of changes that is being coming in a rapid manner. Very briefly, see, the CMC is the biggest challenge in CGT. I mean, everybody accepts the CMC issues with the CGT. Because you need to comply with the kind of regulatory system that per kg body weight, you need to have certain number of CAR T cells you have to infuse, right? So to achieve that number, we need to expand them in vitro by using several methods. Like some are closed systems, some are kind of, modular systems, something like that. So the point is that the more you expand the CAR T cells in vitro, most likely that they may enter into a kind of an energetic state that you may achieve the numbers, but they may not be as effective as they are supposed to be, because they lose their vitality to act upon on the intended target. So the industry is currently moving towards a kind of a very short procedures, like maybe 48 hours or 4 days or something like that. And in some cases, some companies, they already started clinical trial with a CD3 directly targeted lentiviral particles and in vivo generation of the CAR T cells instead of in vitro. Why I'm saying all these things is that to have a kind of a model manufacturing system, you need to come down to a procedure where actually the effective treatment procedures are the products that you can generate. right? So the CGT space is, evolving very rapidly. We can't narrow down. Yes, I can buy a Prodigy machine by paying maybe 2.5 or 3 crores. And the Prodigy is occupied for quite some time with only one patient sample, and which is not a workable business model for an industry to just have one Prodigy with us. So you need to buy 10 numbers, and then CapEx will be increased like anything, right? Instead, there are some kind of, the low alternatives like G-Rex platforms. Maybe I'm talking too technical, but the actual point, what I'm trying to bring to the notice of the chair is that we certainly need to have a kind of available centralized manufacturing platform accessible to the incubators like us, That would be a kind of, great opportunity for small companies to test their product in such a way that they can really come up with the best product out of that. That is the first point that I wanted to bring to the notice of the chair. And the second point, as we already discussed about it, like, the raw materials, the reagents, they're horrendously expensive, and we need to import. I sincerely urge Government of India to reduce, to make the zero GST on the raw materials import and other things, right? So this is my sincere request on behalf of all the companies, to Government of India. And still we have not seen, we expected something that, in the recent shift of the GST slabs, but still needs to be done. So please try to do something on that one. And the indigenization of the critical raw materials like media, antibodies, there are several things like, plasmid DNA and other things. Like Dr. Ambrish mentioned that, some of the kind of, like plasmid DNA or something like that. Maybe Kundan can talk about it much better than me, because they are trying to come up with an excellent facility. Like, we need to encourage startups or young companies to come up with a kind of international standard, high quality raw materials for CGT. Then we can definitely bring down the costs of the manufacturing, and thereby we can certainly, India can attract a kind of medical tourism for CGT space very soon. That's what thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kishore. Can we move on to Dr. Dinesh Kundu? Right there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Grateful for the opportunity. So I'll put my perspective over here. So first thing is, cell and gene therapy space is much more heterogeneous than we even assume it to be. It's extremely heterogeneous, starting from, say, stem cell to a CAR-T, allo-CAR, NK, mRNA. It is so heterogeneous. The guidelines need to be continuously evolving. We cannot have fixed guidelines right now, say we have a DNA guideline or a stem cell guideline, which are insufficient to handle all these changes and evolution. Second thing is, this is something which basically like, say, we talked about in vivo CAR. I won't be surprised if 1 year down the line, there are many more trials of in vivo CAR, or 2 years down the line, than in vitro CAR. So for the regulators, for the manufacturing space, I think it is extremely important to take this into consideration, that evolution of various therapies in different areas, they're considered now. This was the point which Weber made, that thinking 10 years down the line, rather doing reactionary change in the guidelines. We all can accept this fact that changing guidelines in India will take time. So if the guidelines can be evolving in a way that it takes care of any of the future advances, that's point number one. Second thing, we talked about various systems, right? Dr. Kishore talked about various systems. So, for example, we have a G-Rex open system or a semi-closed system, juries, and then we have the prodigies and cocoons and different platforms, and many more will keep coming. So, sir, the challenge with Biofoundries and the companies lies is, say, suppose a Biofoundry is set up. They are set up with, let's say, two ballrooms, like say 2 manufacturing rooms, 2 for viral vectors. But which one can you make over there? So a company which is working on open platform or which is working on cocoon cannot just shift it to Prodigy, and vice versa. So if we are setting up the Biofoundries, they need to take into consideration that it has a flexibility of various systems being worked upon by companies, only then it will be usable. Otherwise, it will be so limited in use despite having the right intent. Same goes the case for viral vectors. In case of viral vectors also, if we can, we cannot make AV and the lenti together. And right now we're thinking mostly in terms of lenti. There's so many more viral platforms which are out there. Multiple AV platforms are there. Gamma retroviral vector platforms are there. So we need, when we set up a Biofoundry or we support someone, that should be with the objective of this kind of flexibility which can be built in the design. Otherwise, it will not be feasible. Coming to the suggestions now. From our side, we want to put certain suggestions for the chair and co-chair to consider. First thing is, being a innovation-based space, do we need GMP for animal studies? We are working on multiple constructs here in CGT, right? So having GMP batches is probably the most costly, time-consuming thing we can do. The same thing, in fact, non-GMP is the right thing to check so that we work on the worst case scenario, not on the best case scenario. So applying the principles of manufacturing of biosimilars to CGT is not only suboptimal, it is time consuming, it does not let us reach the clinical trials. And sir, you mentioned a very valid point. China and US, probably, in my opinion, their matrices are how you reach the clinical trial faster. We need to bring in our policy, reaching the human trials faster, not getting stuck at the animal stage. If somebody needs to fail, they should be failing at the human trials. It's an innovative therapy. I understand the ethical concerns, but taking care of those concerns, we can still have matrices put in place that human trials company should be failing at the human trials. Second and smaller suggestions which probably can be considered and implemented is SECs. So there should be, uniformity in decisions of SECs. So, for the same application, one SEC and a second SEC can have different decisions. That is sometimes can be very disheartening because it can be person dependent, but it should not be. The decisions as well as suggestions, they should be as per the guidelines and they should not be laws like Dr. Anand rightly put it over there. So it should be to support companies and startups to reach the matrices of human trials. Extremely small suggestions, SECs can sign digitally, sir. When it goes paper to 6-8 different members, it takes couple of weeks. I'm not saying months, but couple of weeks. Digital signature, and we have internal digital, basically companies now, digital signature companies in India, they can be used and that can be done in a day. This brings to the last two suggestions from my side. One is why US and China have a big plus compared to us in the regulatory spaces. They have time-bound decisions. So if we are not able to get the right SEC, for example, then the benefit of doubt should be given to the company rather than, like, say, they're waiting for the SEC to sit for 6 months or 9 months. So if it is a time-bound like IND, sir, so if it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days that the regulators can define, and after that it should be basically the people should be able to start the study. And similarly related to this is binding guidelines. We are one of the beneficiaries of RAPA with Dr. Sonia. We were able to talk to everyone over there. So we are one of the early beneficiaries over there. But that guideline should be that a consultation should be basically binding. So if so if status quo has given suggestions, that should be binding on them. And just wrapping it up with that, sir, help people build companies and startups build the facilities. Let them fail. If they fail, government and the regulators can take that up and give it to some Biofoundry and all. But people should be allowed to fail. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah, please.
So, can I just 2 minutes I would take and not take. I know that we are running short on time, but one point which I was hearing from most of the people I was working, hearing, most of them are working on products and they are working on open and adherent system. I think this is an obsolete thing. Seriously, this is an obsolete thing when we are working with bigger people who have capability of M&A. For example, Amgen and Novartis, they are looking at solutions from startups with closed and suspension cells. That's one very clear guideline, because if you develop a system on open and adherent cells, it's basically somebody has to reinvent the wheel and reinvest in the wheel. And that's where the M&A would not be very useful in that way, first thing. And second thing is a decentralized module. This is a must. Like, decentralized module is a separate automated closed module for every activity, right? So, example, from transfection to inductions to purification to testing, everything. And now we are in India, we cannot afford that kind of a decentralized module. So now here my request comes for the chair that visualize a center where we are offering these kind of decentralized modules and many people can use it, in which we will have a development of multiple products, but the center will cater to the needs of these decentralized closed modules, which will actually lead to a technology which is ready for transfer.
Specialized biofoundries will be meant for that only.
Absolutely.
So slowly we are moving towards that.
Okay.
Right. Anyways, I think we can end this session here.
We may, yeah.
Manufacturing models we are ending, but I think ecosystem synergy we have to. Oh, please.
Go ahead, Arun.
On manufacturing systems, I'm wearing my hat as a developer now. Two things. It's very important for foundries to think about engaging with tool developers or technology developers as a sandbox platform, to have them come and showcase not just their platforms, but also invest in those foundries having access to those therapies. And if talent is a shortage, as we expect it to be, then there is a centralized way of anchoring that talent, which with manufacturing know-how, to be able to play around with multiple instruments and platforms to even advise startups. And startups don't know everything. And instead of startups having to reinvent the wheel about which manufacturing platform is best suited to their product, maybe centralized biofoundries can play that role of being an expert with the right talent space. And the last point which I wanted to make was the only thing constant about manufacturing platforms and cell and gene therapies is that they will change. So rather than investing on manufacturing platforms, I would request that companies invest, and even the institutions invest in understanding the fundamental concepts of quality and quality control, because that's what GMP is all about. The mice don't care if the product is made in GMP. And if there is a way that the liability associated with fail early, to Dr. Kundu's point, if the liability to fail early is passed on and kept with the companies, then rather than the regulators, today the liability is with the regulators. That's why they take a more safe approach. So if the liability rests with the companies, then they will invest in making sure that the programs are done thoughtfully at the CMC level before they reach the patients.
I think GMP requirement for preclinical is, in many countries they have waived off actually. And there is also a lot of non-animal models that are coming into picture. So we must also look into those aspects. However, actually, because of time shortage, but it's very, very interesting discussion, we can move to ecosystem synergy. We have missed that.
We've done that.
Ecosystem synergy we have done?
We did?
No,
we missed
we
that.
have not
Correct.
done, no.
Yeah, correct.
So ecosystem synergy, support for innovators, regulators, and policymakers to enable the CGT journey from concept to commercialization. Maybe Dr. Krishnan should lead this.
GSK.
Yeah.
You will arrest me first. Very good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks to IKP and the team to have invited. I'm representing ABLE as the Honorary President, and I have with me also Dr. Dipanvita, who who is also supporting us. In fact, ABLE has been preparing the bioeconomy report for the country. As part of that, the Government of India would like to have a vision for 2047, and it is ABLE which is supporting that. Niti Aayog is the lead sort of agency who's doing that, and we have been given the task to make that report. It's likely to be launched, so I thought it would be appropriate specifically for this particular session over here to give you all some highlights related to cell and gene therapy. But this is still not released, so whatever I'm saying could happen, or mostly it will happen. That's what is my belief. It's actually one among the big ambition is personalized cell and gene therapies made affordable through Indian biomanufacturing. Regulatory, I think everybody has mentioned about that. The Regulatory Reform Task Force is what we are requesting. Establish a cross-ministry regulatory reform task force to streamline pharmaceutical and biotechnology regulations with clear time-bound pathways for advanced therapies, novel biologics, biosimilars, CRISPR-based therapeutics, synthetic biology, and microbiome products. I'm trying to read exactly what we have said, so if anybody has any comments, let me know. Then also modernize and upgrade CDSCO to operate at par with leading global regulators while aligning with international standards to ensure timely approvals, investor confidence, and global competitiveness. Then the other one is the operationalize national bio-missions through time-bound execution plans. One among the mission name was Gene India, and the focus area will be cell and gene therapies. Lead agency will be DBT and ICMR. The outcome by 2035, the ambition is affordable gene cures. By 2035, with all this sort of actions and various other things from a bio-pharma point of view, India can emerge as the global hub for affordable cell and gene therapies, delivering scalable cures for cancers, rare genetic and age-related diseases. And by 2047, CGTs will move from elite cures to mainstream, accessible treatment, transforming the global health paradigm. Lastly, by 2047, India's biopharma landscape will be transformed by AI-designed biologics, precision cell and gene therapies, and programmable living drugs developed through synthetic biology. This is what we have proposed, and we believe all this will be accepted. And I should also mention over here, the main sort of committee here, or the expert committee, one among them is Dr. Kiran Mazumdar, who has also actually has been the brain behind coming together with all this. And we also have Dr. Renu Swarup, whom you all know, and a few other experts who have been part of this proposal which has been submitted. It will first be approved by the Prime Minister's office, and very soon I think it will be launched. This is something I would say is a very, very positive development, and Dr. Jitendra is here who can tell more about these developments. Thank you very much.
Sure. But no ecosystem synergy and this thing can be completed without Dipanvita Madam's comments and remarks, because she has been the leading player in our country to create ecosystems right from scratch, from initial days. So ma'am, if you can tell about some steps that ecosystem building can.
So Jitendra is famous for putting me in a spot. Okay, so the way we have built, we have thought we have built ecosystems as enablers, if I'm talking of incubators, for the last 20 years, I think we need to rethink, and this conference is actually to rethink and recalibrate ourselves. The way we have thought of incubators as silos where some startups will come and benefit with some basic facilities given and some support in terms of business provided. I think with AI and other technologies coming in play, this may not be so relevant 7 or 8 years later, or maybe even 5 years later. We need to rethink what incubation is, and we are hearing collaborative platforms. We are talking of collaborate. I think incubation today is also about collaborative platforms. But that said, Biofoundry that we talked about and pilot scale facilities most of our incubators today in the country, we have about 100 BioNest incubators and some state government incubators, all put together about 130. I don't think, except for maybe Imtech Chandigarh has a pilot plant and a few others, there are no pilot plants where startups and researchers can really look at experimenting before they set up their own facilities. So I think our next stage of incubation is about setting up Biofoundries and pilot plants. And how do we do it? What kind of, because this has been asked to me, what kind of resources will be required? And when I say resources, it's just not money, it's also people. We really need to think it's not about 2 crores or 5 crores given for 5 years to an incubator. And somebody said these have to be real hubs, a few of them, but well-resourced, well-financed. I think we need to look at those models. Thank you.
Dipanvita, I think you have given a nice segue for bringing in Dr. Abdul Rabb now, because the CEO of ITRI, and they are building infrastructure in different things. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you,
and
Satya.
after
Thank
Abdul,
you, Chair.
We'll open it up and we'll start with Subramani, good friend Subbu, who's sitting in the back, and then we'll have the roundtable. Yeah.
Super. I'll keep it brief. I know we are running out of time. I think a lot of the conversation has been about tools, components, technologies, stakeholders, and that's what an ecosystem is. Ecosystem embodies that the whole is larger than the parts. The tools and components are very important. Vaibhav, you mentioned about what's 10 years from now. To give you an example, of the US stock market is about $30 trillion. 30% of that valuation just comes from 7 companies, the Magnificent 7, Tesla, Amazon, Facebook, so on and so forth. So it's home to some large value creators. How did that happen, right? Twitter, Amazon, Facebook, all of these companies, without the open source stack of C, C++, Visual and all of that, would never have happened. So the ecosystem that produces large value creators also produces the tools with which that value was created. It's very important to note. So among primates, humans are the only tool inventors and users. Other primates don't do that. So in economically viable and successful ecosystems, you see the same exact thing. They are tool creators and then tool users. What we've been focusing is that let's just buy the tools, let's just download the software. We can only create so much value out of it. We can be large value creators, right? So we need to become, now China, I think China is ascending. You see the same thing. They are now tool creators for the world, interestingly. So 10 years, 20 years, our positioning should be, right? And today's conversation, and also the importance of open-ended science. Today's conversation is about cell and gene therapy. Without gene editing, we will not be having that conversation. How did that come about? Did that come about because the scientists said, let's create a $1 trillion company? No. They were simply curious about how viruses and bacteria interact, and that changed the world, right? So I think, like Dipanvita mentioned, we need to have a rethink. Like, where do we go from here? What did we do right? So from that perspective, cell and gene therapy represents deepest of the deep tech. It's extremely complex. And for one entity, one person to master the whole thing, nearly impossible. And I would even argue that's inefficient. Can we, from the gap map perspective, create we need 20 components for cell and gene therapy. Let's just say, give an example of electric vehicle. We need 20 components. Now, the car needs to come together to be able to sell a car. But can we sell a wheel? The answer is yes. If we become exceptional at each of the component, there is a market for that component too. That view is, I found in my interaction with academics largely, that component view is lost. Either we do the whole thing or we don't do it. That's also why I think the dependency for media and a lot of other things is not there, because nobody is thinking at that level. Either thinking at the very high level. One suggestion perhaps for MD would be, can we do grant calls at the component levels, right? If we create exceptional components, the whole is inevitable. It's going to happen. We don't need to try for it. It's going to come together anyway. But I don't see many academics working on, like for instance, we have exceptional engineering institutions like IIT Bombay. Why didn't they create Oxford Nanopore? It's a small little device. We could have done it. right? And one aspect, I think, given 3 decades of software legacy that India has, why didn't we take leadership in computational biology? I think there are many, many low-hanging fruits. In eyeing for something very big, I think we are leaving a lot of stuff on the table which we should be, right? So I will stop at that and we'll get into the discussion. Thanks.
Actually, it's very, very interesting point that you have raised. Actually, I was studying, countries how their innovation ecosystem is working. And Germany stands out in what you just said. Actually, Germany may not have many multinational companies, but they have produced hugely good and very deep tech science for the whole country, whole world. How they do it actually? There are no multinational companies. I mean, there's no fashion of multinational companies there. Most of them are like MSMEs. And they're like family business run. But they go very deep. And what you said was, they focus on components. They focus on components and go deep and make the best components available in the world. You won't find such components anywhere. And it's not only component, they come with the whole also. But the components part is very, very deep. And that's how they come with the whole structures also. Most of the, for example, I've used the shakers in PhD, Those were the best shakers which were German, make. Because, I mean, the kind of precision, the temperature and heat they can maintain is unparalleled. Automobile, aviation, I mean, those are not CGT, of course, but CGT Miltini Biotech, for example. German, it's a proprietary, it's not a multinational, I mean, it's a multinational, but it's not like kind of a corporate that we talk about like US. It's run as a family business. Still, Miltini holds most of the shares. So we have to learn from each country's innovation ecosystem, and they all have developed in a very, very unique ways. And India has to find its unique mechanism in it.
It's called Mittelstand.
Mittelstand, yeah.
Small SMEs that actually make, I think, more than 80%.
More than 80%. And they are very deep into, and the quality is supreme. Cannot match any.
Jitendra, can I 10 seconds?
Yes.
10 seconds? Yeah. See, I did my PhD in Germany. I spent almost 8 years out there in German Cancer Research Center. I mean, many of you must have heard Max Planck's institutes, but the another chain of institutes like Fraunhofer's institutes are there. And they are dedicated for individual sectors. Even for cell therapy, they established a very premier institute, Fraunhofer's institutes, and they are dedicated to come up with the best quality things. Yeah, the other thing what I wanted to request you is that if BIRAC or Government of India can set up a supercomputer which is accessible for all the researchers for conducting molecular modeling or any such sort of work, that would be a fantastic platform, and that helps really, startups to come up with excellent products. Currently, we are facing a lot of challenges regarding, for example, if you talk about Schrödinger, which is for an academic institute, okay, they are offering for maybe for better price. If you ask me in AIC, CCMB, which is funded by Niti Aayog, and we are not accessible to kind of, the registered prices as they are offering for the academic institutions, right? If government can come up with a kind of a centralized computing facility which can give access to the universities or startups, that would be a fantastic opportunity for startups. Yeah, thank you.
These Biofoundries are supposed to have this kind of structures, DBLT, design, build, learn, and test. So design means they are supposed to have all these supercomputing facilities and where you can design your experiment or products or processes. But anyway, good point.
Shall we move, Chair? Okay, I'll come to Pooja later, but Subbu is waiting, and then...
So, my name is Subbu. I have been in biomanufacturing for more than 20 years, so I have a few comments. One is the science, right? Science of developing CAR-T or any other cell and gene therapy. So I will stay away from that. Then there's the regulatory piece, which we all understand requires a lot more of policy and regulation. I think manufacturing is a piece which is being treated in silos. So let's take the example of ImmunoAg. They were great at developing the CAR T cell, but now they are forced to do the manufacturing. So you're asking a guy who makes idli dosa to make pasta tomorrow. This is actually inefficient. Anytime we build a biotech plant, there's a foundry and there's manufacturing. The manufacturing is working in silos. Let's take Concepto. They design GMP layouts, etc. But then there's somebody else who makes the fermenters or the bioreactors, somebody makes the cell separators, somebody does. So when we build manufacturing plants, we are building our own mobile phone. And then we are saying we have to be the best at it. I think from the government point of view, we as entrepreneurs or as companies look at opportunities and build our business. We cannot create resources. So the government will have to create opportunity to make those resources which the ecosystem can utilize. So when I say that, one is the example which Doctor mentioned, which is making those components. So if you look at all the grants that we have called, it's about products, smart protein, cell and gene therapy. We're not talking about resins. We're not talking about chromatography columns, which can be easily made here. In terms of manufacturing, if we can build a space station, we can build a GMP plant in this room. But we have to think a little differently. So if the government can focus on creating centers of manufacturing excellence, then you will find many people coming together by integrating the layout. Like, why do we need GMP panels? We can use glass. We can use vacuum-driven modules which can come in and you have a vacuum lock like you have in space. If you can keep space out of a space station, you can keep contamination out of any equipment. We may not even need the Milteney or any other equipments to make cell and gene therapy products if we can invest in creating these kind of manufacturing innovations. For example, one of the problems in cell and gene therapy we saw is shipping the cells itself. Moving it from the patient after apheresis to the lab and then producing it for 21 days and taking it back. If we can have mobile food trucks, we can have mobile CGT. I mean, it's possible. So that's where my call for the government is to create the resource to do that, and manufacturing will follow.
Thank you, Subbu. My name is Anirudh. I'm a co-founder of a company called Helix, and at Helix we're building next generation therapeutics using lipid nanoparticles and genomic medicine. So we're solving for very specific kidney indications. And as a company that we've been doing this for 4 years, I think all of it almost on private capital, right? So we've been very successfully raising money from investors. And when money is taken out of equation, ecosystem here is being really inadequate for us to make our product. Right? And as I'm getting, next year we're planning our non-human primate studies for our therapeutic, and hopefully in a couple of years we'll be in clinics. As I'm reaching NHP studies, I feel, and I am slowly moving my product, I feel, out of India, right? Because I want to build for the world in India, and that's not possible. I can't do non-human primate studies in India because we only use rhesus monkeys, and FDA and significant other regulators who I have potential to license my product don't accept rhesus anymore due to high immunogenicity, right? So they accept cynos. So I've actually outsourced my NHP studies worth about $300,000-400,000 to Japan. At the same time, our lipid nanoparticles we are now outsourcing to US for manufacturing. We can't really build these things very quickly, especially with the lack of constraints that we're facing, and especially in this field where speed is also of essence. We feel that it's becoming easier actually to work elsewhere than here. And this I'm coming especially because I have capital and I have means to deploy the capital to build my product in a very meaningful and timeful manner. But it's again time that it takes to do anything right now here. It's getting very difficult. So once you move from the startup stage into, let's say, getting closer to clinics, we're facing a lot of difficulties, especially, there is MedTech Mitra, which gives a very clear regulatory pathway. For us, we are not finding that pathway. And we are taking a model where we want to do clinical trials in India, use that as a safety and efficacy quotient, and then try to license this out for the world. And that's how all Chinese companies have been doing it. They've raised like $20 billion in first half of this year, all deal values of $100 million to $250 million, all because they're able to do clinical trials in China, show that it's safety and efficacy, and then license it out to, let's say, US-based corporations. So any support there is always going to be welcome.
Thank you, Anirudh. Pooja Agarwal, Program Director at BFI.
Hi. So I echo with everything that has been said, but one additional point is what we have seen through BFI is with academic institute, a lot of such components are being built, right? So there are two things that I feel can help. One is maybe a sense of urgency in the academics also, and more crosstalk between the academics and entities like BIRAC. So when the funding for such programs is given, for designing delivery mechanism or viral vectors or gene editing, I feel a little bit of urgency and a little bit of education and collaboration can help. So a crosstalk between basically the people who are funding and the PIs.
Great. Thank you, Pooja. I think that the urgency part is really good. We've been seeing this, not just from BFI, but as we engage with academicians. The chair has quietly nudged me to move to the next. And when we talk about people, there is Professor Ullas Kulur, you may know him. And welcome, Ullas. Let's go to the fourth and the final one, which is sustainability and talent. Building a skilled workforce and capacity to sustain a competitive CGT ecosystem. I'll reverse the order that I mentioned. I haven't heard from many from the other side of the gender. Pooja was the first one, I think. Anybody else? I didn't hear. Sonia was also the other one, yes. And also the madam from AIIMS, Patna. So let's go with Dr. Anu Uppal first, and then we'll go to Professor Pavandhar, and then Professor Anil Kaul.
Thank you very much. Wonderful discussion. I have been making a lot of notes, and thank you for the opportunity having me here. If you look at the recent data, FDA CRL data, it's around like 60% of the CRLs where this CGT have been, it's all because of not because of the safety and efficacy concerns, but it is because of the CMC data. It is because of the stability, non-validated methods, right? So it's the more analytical part. And that's where then, as a USP, because we are talking about capacity building, so what we are doing is that we have built our own roadmap on what kind of standardization needs are there. Because here we are talking about the more personalized things, right? And we talked about, I think someone mentioned about that we are going forward for more personalization. So we need to think that how do we reduce the risk? Because there is a risk reduced, but then how do we make sure that whatever is being done is being right, quality is maintained. So from that angle, what we are doing is looking into the overall life cycle of the product development, raw materials, to product testing, manufacturing, then the impurities part, and then also coming to the final product. So here then looking into it, what kind of standardization needs are. So accordingly we are developing the general chapter guidances which can help in, so something we mentioned about having education on what are the quality attributes needed for a plasmid vector. So how would you ensure when you are using a plasmid as a vector, as a raw material? So then we have developed a chapter. So likewise, empty full capsid analysis, titer analysis. So these are some of the methods which are common, right? And that's where we are trying to develop standards and some basic methods given which can serve as a good starting point. So these are validated methods in our own conditions, which manufacturers can adapt. And I think that will be something which will be very helpful for the startups, because when, they have something to start with other than, starting from scratch and developing the method and validating it. So there is something to start with, to help facilitate or accelerate the method development. So that is one aspect. And that's where we said the capability building, knowledge transfer needed from both angles, manufacturers as well as regulators, because again, regulators also. So we have had a very good discussion with CDSCO, and we are thinking about how we can really, so this is something we have not done in India, but we have done across globe. So there is an Apex Center of Excellence where there are regular programs conducted for the training of regulators. So something can we do it here in India so that they are also, at par on what's happening across the globe. What are the new technologies coming up? So when they're looking at the data from a quality control perspective, what are the things they need to look into? So educating, on a regular basis for regulators also is one thing. The other thing what I would like to mention is that something which we're working with Dr. Sonia BIRAC is we are starting a series of webinars on CGT. So what we have done is we have identified topics from a landscape perspective to manufacturing, to scale up, to quality control, regulatory, and then this will be like a monthly webinar series where we will be talking about these. So I think we will be able to, generate some awareness, the need for, building that education in the startup ecosystem. So probably that will help. So
we also have signed, Sonia, we have also signed for preferential access of standards for startups, no? That will also benefit the ecosystem very well, actually.
That's true. So just for the benefit of the larger group, preferential access is a program at USP where we will be providing the reference standards at a very nominal prices. So we are looking into putting a mechanism on how do we take this to the next level. So more to come on that part. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Anu. Professor Pavan?
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me here. It's been a great learning experience throughout the day, and I had taken, when I started from home, I had made a list of many points, and I was just striking them out one after the other. So whatever you hear from me, this might be a reworded version of what has already been discussed, just to sound novel. Two aspects. One is the talent aspect, and the other is sustainability aspect. From the talent perspective, I feel if we can organize annual events, maybe ideathons, maybe workshops, maybe conferences, dedicated to CGT, cell and gene therapy, then a new energy and a nucleus gets generated, and a lot of ideas come up in these events. Likewise, from BIRAC perspective, from DBT perspective, can we have national CGT return fellowship programs along the lines of Ramanujan and Ramalinga Swami, dedicated for this sector? Because the whole idea, as I see from the last few years, I've been to IKP, thank you very much, Dipanvita, for inviting me. We're getting serious slowly in this sector. Now, when you're getting serious, you got to concentrate few ideas and scale them up. Can we also have open innovation calls? I think we just heard that. And these open innovation calls would be about generating skills, generating new ideas. And there are open innovation websites wherein they say, this is the problem. If you solve it, we will give you so much of reward. Something like that. And scaling this thought up, a very wild thought, which I don't know if will go well, but just for the sake of, saying something relevant to this setting, can we think of along the lines that we just heard, can we think of a grand challenge, $1 billion prize given to somebody who can reduce the cost 80%, deliver the solution in 1 week, and reduce the tumor by 50%? I'm now connecting with the Human Genome Project, the way it was made successful because these big numbers were, and people delivered the solutions. Also, I think there's a need to create not only the center of excellence, but clusters of excellence, wherein you have hospitals, research labs, and funding bodies, or maybe startups together coming under the same roof and functionalize these clusters. Maybe we have a viral cluster and non-viral cluster, because this is how probably more ideas and more solutions will come. And as we heard, we should enjoy failures. I think failures should not be a punishment, but it should be something lesson that is learn and use failures as fertilizers to grow new thoughts. This has already been mentioned in the sustainability category. I had put this thought that if you can create a 5-year zero duty or zero GST window for labs working in cell and gene therapy area, not only for consumables but also for equipment, if there are any specialized things connected with that, can we announce funding for non-viral or universal donor systems? People are, everybody knows that I'm not saying something new. People are working on transposomes, minicircles, and nanoparticles. I think we need to really have a nanotechnology expert as a part of this committee next time. The industry from nanotechnology, so that they will tell us how they can use the nanoparticle-based technologies to do a targeted delivery, or maybe some baby steps in that. Likewise, people are working on developing microfluidic cartridge, like a car on a chip, removing the need for GMP. Well, these are all very early ideas, and what's the success rate? We do not know. Likewise, a temporary CAR expression approach where you use a synthetic mRNA pulse, or dual antigen targeting, or self-amplifying RNA, or even there are many. I think the list is long. I will not bore the audience with this. But I guess the brilliant start has already been made, and we just need to sustain the momentum. And already we have identified the interest group, and with a strong government support and support from industry, and I only can see a positive outcome of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Pawan. We'll go to the last expert for this, and then we'll open it to, and I think Indranil Ghosh wanted to start as the first expert after that, after Professor.
Thanks a lot. Good afternoon. I think, as Dr. Pawan mentioned, that most of the topics have been covered. I will just try to sort of take a cue from what Dr. Jatinder said about Germany. Why Germans are successful, or why West is successful. I think one of the reasons why I've been, since I have served in the US for a number of years, one of the things in the medical schools, we don't have any restriction who can join a medical school. So I have had chemical engineers, telecommunication engineers come in, and they come up with brilliant ideas. That's where innovation happens. The other thing which I have seen, which is missing in India, is I've been in India only for a year, but one thing missing is that with the students, they hesitate to ask questions. If they don't ask questions, innovations won't happen. So we are trying to do something differently at Malaradi Vishwavidhyalaya. It is a relatively new deemed university which we got approval last year. We are starting a number of new programs which are rather unique. One of them is a bachelor's and master's and PhD program in molecular medicine and cell therapy. We are also starting something similar, cellular therapy, and also we are also starting CAR-T therapy programs. The advantage we have is we have 4 hospitals with about 3,000 patients per day, outpatients. So we have that access, and we are also building a new CAR-T center. So without a robust workforce, any business will not succeed. Whatever we say, unless we have the workforce, I've heard of all the technologies and everything else, but we need people. We need trained people. In hospitals, I need clinicians who are aware and who are trained in these new therapies. I see all the time clinicians don't want to do it. They are not aware of it. So no matter what technologies we bring in, unless we go to the grassroots, it's not going to happen. So that is what we have to change the culture, the mindset. We are bringing these technologies into the medical school itself, making the medical students aware of the technologies, what is available out there. So that is going to make a little difference. We're trying a little bit. And I think we are creating another cadre of workforce. We call them health navigators for cell therapy. They are the people, they are nurses primarily, who will be taking patients through the whole process. What happens to us is we drop patients in midway. Patients lose the way, and we lose a patient. That is not acceptable. I think we have to think outside the box. We have to work across disciplines. I just leave it like that. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Anil Kaur. We'll open this up for the next 5 minutes, 7 minutes. No, Indranil is going to talk. No, Indranil is going to be the first one to intervene when we open this discussion. After that, please to raise your hands, and then I'll request both the chair and the Panvita then to close the session. Indranil?
Somebody from there also.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Indranil. I am the Business Development Director Asia of Vector Biomet and Caring Cross. So, although this is a company based in US, we have done extensive work in India. So all over, I wouldn't go topic by topic, but I would give you a brief overview. We have started our journey in India with Muni Seva Ashram, which is a small organization in near Vadodara, to provide CAR T cell therapy to below poverty line people. So that has been picked up by Biospectrum Asia and Digital Drug and Machines. It is in the public domain. Hearing everybody, and obviously Dr. Jitendra Kumar is aware of it, that the main 60 to 70% of the COGS, cost of goods, of CAR T therapy comes from the vector and the process. We are in the process, it is finalized, but still it is not in the press release, to produce the vector in India. That would cut the cost of CAR T cell therapy drastically and would be at par with bone marrow transplant cost. So this is something that we are already the work is underway. And we are confident that in the next 2 years, we will be out with a product which will help the Indian cell and gene therapy, but it is a lentiviral product. Similar things can be done for AAV and other particles. The other thing that is very interesting is that people are, so there are three companies which has tanked in the recent time: Takeda, Novo Nordisk, and Galapagos, 900, 300, and 130 million. That gives a wrong signal, but it is not the end of the road. It is a reset of cell and gene therapy, and this is where we come in. India comes in as the major player, and we can really change the face of cell and gene therapy by cashing in on our, we have a very strong molecular biology and cell biology know-how, knowledge, work power in India. And best example is Cellogen, who is coming up with dual CAR T and other products endogenously developed. This is the time when we need to invest on manpower, as Malagari University is promoting. But also I would like to say that Muni Seva Ashram does have a program of training doctors for CAR T cell therapy end to end. So this is something which is, the ecosystem is developing, and with the help of stalwarts in this industry, which evolved from biopharmaceuticals, we can surely say that India is going to lead the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
somebody in the back. Let them go first, and then you can come.
Hello. Yeah, this is Prashant here. I am one of the co-founder at Vision Labs. So we are actually engaging ourselves into the CGD space. I think I heard all the discussion for last couple of hours. I think everybody's effort right now, I think the cornerstone for everybody's effort is the patient, right? And when we are talking about CGT is not going to be the solution for every disease, right? We will have to pick up certain level of patient population and everything. So every product is going to be unique. So I think when we are talking about lot of components and lot of aspects and everything, what is going to be most important is that unless and until we don't have a product, right? I don't think that we can actually even train the people, right? We can train the people on building the tools or something like that, but the real sense about working the products and everything. And when we say that on the research or the building tools, I think somehow we had lost our time, right? So maybe as a strategy in the CGT, what it has to be done is that we should not be shying away from buying technologies from outside for our own countries, right? Then buy the technologies, get it at the right time, develop our own know-how, right? Because I believe that everybody is in the learning curve here, right? We have we call ourselves as a pharmacy of the world. But when it comes to CGT, I think whether it is a big player or a small player or a startup, I think everybody is learning, right? No individual people have answers to CGT, right? And if you want to bring some tangible thought process, I think tangible will always bring the value, the money, which I think even Dr. Arun was mentioning about bringing that value to the patient, right? So I think that is going to be most important. If we are able to build certain technologies on somebody else, that, get access to that technology, get our people to work, and then we can leapfrog into generating next level of technologies and everything. We should not, raise our bar so high that, we will get lost. And I think that's what I think even the ICR, the chairperson mentioned about that, we have to focus on certain solutions, right? Don't just get carry forward with, there is so much of noise, but we have to identify some key spots and then generate value there, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant. Dr. Suresh?
Maybe out of question and may sound pessimistic. First of all, sorry about that.
We will end with an optimistic note after you.
Sure.
But you can be pessimistic.
Our real worry is because in 2019, when I was getting trained on the CAR-T, most of the patients who were already treated with CAR-T are now coming up with a T-cell leukemia, which is impossible to treat. So this is something which no one thought of. No one thought of the future. And there are models like Loris and other things which are trying to identify the immunotherapy, who will benefit, who will get toxicities. So there is no such model for the CGD so far. We have AI. I don't know whether it is going to help us or not. But it is always good for clinicians like us to see, okay, this gentleman is likely to develop a leukemia. I better not treat him. So this has to be thought from the design from the very beginning. So this is something which no one worked. When I just asked my professor, Jeff Schreiber, he told, we are not working and we are clueless. So I'm sorry, it may sound very pessimistic for the CGT, but this is what is the real worry in the future. Whether it is RNA vaccines leading to the brain degenerations or heart attacks, we don't know, there may be simple causation association, but for the gene therapy in the CAR-T which we treat or I treat, it is always a real threat with a proven causation sort of thing for the T-cell leukemias. I'm sorry, to sound pessimistic.
Good to always
we have to break the ice.
Good to raise red flags. I see, I'll just offer to people who haven't spoken first. So Nutan is in the back and then Sonia will speak. Sonia raised.
Thanks everyone for curating such an interesting and informative session. So I just have 2 points. First of all, I am working as a senior policy advisor at Netherlands Innovation Network. So my goal is to try to identify the potential areas where there can be complementarity, and I can see that of course there are themes when we are talking about regulatory landscape is evolving. So I think it will be good if we can initiate more talks between CDSCO and EMA at this stage rather than getting our own regulatory pathway and then talking about it. And other point, Dr. Dipanvita said that when we are talking about ecosystem enabler, type of models to learn from, I would just name a very interesting model which is right now very much well appreciated in European countries, especially in the Netherlands, that is OnCode Accelerator. So which create co-funding. An innovator has to follow certain norms and then they can demonstrate their project. So regulatory pathway has been set down so that the timelines and credential has been restored. So these are some of the models which I think we can explore more. Thank you.
Thank you, Nutan. And Nutan and I run a WhatsApp group of ex-BIRAC colleagues. So Nutan and I were BIRAC colleagues at one time. Sonia and then Arun, and then we'll close.
I just
Was somebody there? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, please.
I just want to make an announcement. It's regarding one of the events which we are doing on CGT on 6th of November at Delhi. And it's basically Industry Academia Meet. It's a collaborative event from Department of Biotechnology and BIRAC. And it will lay down a foundation stone for the national mission program on the cell and gene therapy. So with permission from MD BIRAC, I invite all of you. I will request Vishu to please share the list with us. We will send invites to all of you. It's an invitation-only event. So please, if some of you, please check your spam emails. If you didn't get the invites, please feel free to send back the messages. Or
6th November.
6th of November.
Okay, Arun, you are participating 6th November?
Happy to. So I just have an observation and a suggestion. The observation is we all recognize there's a huge increase in the number of startups in India in the cell and gene therapy space. That's very encouraging. But we're also seeing at the same time that there is a dearth of manpower, dearth of resources. And the observation there is if everyone is suboptimal on people and suboptimal on funding, how can innovation happen? That's the observation. It's a worrying observation. And the suggestion is actually to BIRAC. And the suggestion is, BIRAC today holds the repository of all of the startups and ideation happening in the country. Why can't BIRAC maybe create a small work group that makes the connections? That Professor X is working on some component or a derivative, and Institute Y is working on something else. Just X and Y may not know each other because they're working on maybe competitive technologies, but collaboration may yield a better success. And the second suggestion is, if we concentrate, we'll get depth. That's my belief. So if the Biofoundry mission can concentrate on 5 or 6 centers of excellence for manufacturing, that at least keeps the people constant while the technologies keep changing, then you have the abilities for startups to say, okay, I'm focused on the science. I don't have to worry about operational excellence because there are institutes of excellence that are regulated, inspected, and so on, and can get this going.
Thank you, Arun, for that. We'll have Dr. Vadiraj Bhatt, and then there is one wildcard entry right there. So, and then, of course, and Kundan as well.
Yeah, I'll be quick. So essentially, we are talking about decentralized biofoundry.
Bring your mic closer.
So decentralized biofoundry kind of stuff. I think more automation has to be there because it has to be more effective in automation part, right? Because it has to be done. The other one is scalable, decentralized is required to reach the patients. The third one is the skill that mentioned. Technology can be there, but the skill is required. So I suggest that more paid trainings, everybody should do that, because free training does not work because it can be short and half a day training. So I think do that. So as part of that, we in the last 1 year started 2 centers in India for particularly focusing on the cell therapy or cell analysis. One is in Manesar, one is recently in Hyderabad, just a couple of months back. So we started the simple trainings, offering the simple training, free trainings for a lot of people. Those who don't get the training on the flow cytometers and different technologies. But my recommendation is that more training can be done. We can offer the paid trainings as well, more extended trainings for these products. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. I will go to colleague right. Yeah, can you? No, the one back. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Bharat. I'm a medical oncologist, just like Dr. Suresh Ateli sir. And I specifically focus on stage 4 cancers, which has been out of options in India. And for that same reason, I'm part of certain networks where we have access to CAR T-cell, which are not available in India. So ultimately what I want to say, dhande ki baat, Janta is never happy. Whatever is the rate, reducing the rate is not the ultimate solution. So we have to reduce the rates of everything, but Janta, if you reduce it to 50 lakhs, Janta will say 20 lakhs. You reduce it to 20 lakhs, Janta will say 10 lakhs. So ultimately, we should also involve some NBFC or finance program where a patient can take these things. Also, this same percolates to clinical trials. I agree with Mr. Prashant. We should not set standards so high that the therapy cannot come in India. Now, there are 2 drugs which has come from a non-class A country. Non-class A means like Class A is America, Canada, Japan, Germany, like that. Non-Class A is anywhere else. China, for example. So there are 2 molecules bought by Intas, one by Jadis. Directly the accelerated approval has been taken place based on first 200 patients, and it's a commercialized product directly, immunotherapy. If you want to know the name, tolperisumab is the name. Now same way CGT can be taken from other countries under the accelerated approval with the condition that data has to be submitted. If that can be approved, a lot more number of people can take it. I'm not saying bypass the human trial, present it. And there should be a partition, there should be a vertical where a patient can sponsor at a priority the drug, the CGT. So that way the number of patients enrollment will increase. It will not put load on the startups to conduct the human trial, everything on their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. We'll go to Dr. Kundan Thakur from Concepo and then Dr. Abhishek here.
Thank you so much. I, being the last speaker, will prove the hypothesis that I'm going to talk about. When you transcribe the entire recordings, 3 or 4 words will come out very, very strongly. Regulatory, ecosystem, collaboration. When we talk about ecosystem, we take a lot of liberation and talk about ecosystem. Ecosystem does not only involve the science and technology part of it, the missing piece is always engineering. So when we were forming the company, we consciously named our company Concepo Scientech International. When you break the Scientech, it is science, engineering, and technology. It's a culmination of all 3. So I heard people talking about the engineering aspects and other aspects. I'm here to tell you about the last thing that you would want to listen from a suffering patient is they are waiting for a clinical trial because the facility is yet to come up. And why the facility is not coming up? The most dreaded word, budgetary approval. Can you reverse the entire scientific, chronology of not doing the basic research, fundamental research, and directly jumping into commercial product launch? Answer is big no. Why do we do that when we come to infrastructure? Why do you come with a budget and then force somebody to design and build a facility? That's the biggest gap we as a company are trying to plug in. More than happy to collaborate with all of you. My request, my feedback is to also Dr. Jitendra, include us in the philosophy where we can do a feasibility, assess the entire infrastructure part of it. We're doing a phenomenal job in CGT facility also. I may not name the name of the companies. We have exposure of working with Prodigy product, with Cocoons and others. We understand what is the basic requirement. We understand the philosophies of GMP. We understand the requirement of end regulators. So more than happy and see how best we can collaborate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kundan. Abhishek.
So Abhishek here from Atria University. So just one point. I think a lot of data from various ecosystems exist in silos. And there is a way in which you have to pool it, especially when you're talking AI, but the more amount of data you can ingest, the better it is. But at the same time, you need to balance privacy of various patients across and the IP which is being generated in different places. And this is a place where I think someone like BFI can very easily step in and kind of lead this national data bank, if you want to call it that. But I think it has to happen not just in this ecosystem, but various ecosystems. But fundamentally here, if a startup in Bangalore can work with data from a hospital in Delhi, that's really beneficial for that startup, right? So I think that's one thing. And second is, I think, when you talk about AI, I think a lot of it goes towards LLMs and so on, and rightly so because it's the buzzword today. But physical AI is increasingly becoming very important. So I think the marriage of physical AI with traditional manufacturing, we do have a strong base of manufacturing, but not a strong base marrying these two concepts, at least in India. So I think innovation challenges for that would really help in some form.
Great points, Abhishek Padmanabhan from Atria in Bangalore.
Just to add one point.
You can add, but Vaibhav also raised his hand. We are in the last 2 minutes of this, and we'll also ask Chair to wrap
15
it up.
seconds. So tomorrow, Telangana Data Exchange team will be there in case if somebody want to access this data, please meet them.
So very important point, and this is for Abel, and somebody already mentioned, and I think the whole synchronization has to happen. How he mentioned it's about the market. people who are going to be focused on getting the right markets and getting the money back will automatically get the money towards the government. So it's also about what we can do for BIRAC, right? So startups here or companies here are going to take risk that they can get the money into the system. And one of the important things that I've seen in Europe, for example, where people actually file regulatory applications, either for the national phase or for EMA. Maybe instead of just talking, I think somebody mentioned, what we can try to create, like it happened within FDA and EMA also, there could be a hotline between EMA and that could be ABLE's, one of the things for 2047, EMA or FDA and CIDISCO, where somebody can choose that when I'm applying to CIDISCO, this application is automatically going to FDA and EMA. So that collaboration is not going to take more than 5 years to develop, I can assure, because people are open. Anu is here. USP has been, has been helped already. This can happen. Then what we are going to do is we are talking about a particular regulatory submission where somebody is not going to say, oh, ये तो CIDISCO के लिए है, जब FDA के लिए होगा तब करेंगे. So, you understand that's the point we need to counter. That's the trust we need to bring at the global level. And last thing, if I can say, we don't have Emily Whitehead yet of our own. We need to have some marketing here. BIRAC can help us. Who is the first patient we treated in India? I don't see his face, but I see Emily Whitehead every year growing. I don't see that Indian patient who was treated by Immunil or Immunact or other people. So we need to do that.
Great
Thank you.
Thank you, Evo.
Can I just add to his point?
Yes, go ahead.
So he mentioned about submitting that this is for CDSCO or FDA or EMA, right? So there is a group called PDG, Pharmacopoeia Discussion Group, Harmonization Group, and their USP, JP, EMA are part of it. Last year or last to last year, IPC was added. Now Korean Pharmacopoeia has also been added now. So there, one of the things now which we are trying to do is we call it prospective harmonization. So where it's like, reaching out to innovators and asking if they are submitting it to FDA, are they also open to submit for EMA or maybe IPC or wherever, so that monograph can be written well in advance. Because once the monograph is there, then it becomes very hard to, standardize it. And we have been doing it. There are excipient and general chapters which have been harmonized. But then doing these kind of things like proactively, where before, like whenever the donation is submitted, that time itself, if we can develop a monograph and align on, okay, these are the specifications, these are the methods which will be there, I think that will be a game changer. But having said, it has its own, challenges, not easy to do, but we are trying. So all the pharmacopoeias are coming together and trying that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anu, for the mention of PDG, and now you are corralling different people to come together. We'll close here, but I'll request my chair and Dipanvita to close this amazing roundtable. Before we do, we must thank IKP and Vishu and his team for putting us together on a Sunday evening. Great. I've been living and working out of Berlin for the last 6 years. Saw how Angela Merkel and the country dealt with COVID and others. But sometimes I walk on one of the longest high street called Kudam, and as I'm walking, you see, oh, Robert Koch used to live there, right? And then you realize what kind of, of course, Berlin is famous for one history, but the other history is there too. And Charité is the largest hospital in Europe, and Charité just started a Center for Advanced Therapeutics. And they have small non-GMP or non-GMP incubators, very small, all linked to a big GMP level facility. So people talking about infrastructure and others, maybe we can look into that. Amazing discussion. Thank you to everyone who contributed, who listened. And sorry if I had to, cut you in midstream. But we have my chair here, Dr. Jitendra. Jitendra is a good friend. He's patiently listening, and many of us are saying BIRAC should do this, should do that, all of that. And of course, Dipanvita, who's built this amazing IKP Knowledge Park. Those of you who haven't gone to the park, you should go and visit what it really the park is. And I'll end this and pass the baton to both of them to close this.
So a lot of expectations have come from BIRAC, which is dangerous for me, but also exciting for me, because then I can at least feel that I have played some role in the whole field, accomplishments and success of our country in this area. So I'll just, so it's not possible to summarize what we have discussed so far. I mean, it's so many grounds we have covered. It's literally not possible. And then my flight, I have to rush for my flight also. So you can imagine my situation. But still, some of the points that struck me and struck the chord are following. Of course, it has become a high degree of personalization in CGT, which has come from some of the speakers. Second is licensor has to become a regulator and funder has to become an investor. That was a very good thing, and we'll definitely strive towards that. The other thing is the underlying technologies have to be understood properly, and inclusion of AI platforms, etc., would be very helpful in this whole CGT domain, which is, of course, very insightful. Somebody told about incubation centers coming together to solve, because complementarities are there. So definitely with AIMS Patna and IIT Patna, I think you can definitely do that. One of the most important point came up during this discussion was how to reduce the cost of the therapy. And the equipment cost, like mass spec and microscopy, etc., is huge because we are importing. We must have capabilities to develop these. I think in the due course of time we must. Otherwise, cost of therapy for CGD, not only CGD, but any kind of therapy will be not affordable for the masses. And it applies to the consumables also. So somebody talked about raw materials, standardization, etc., which is very, very important. We also got a view from somebody who is actually doing a centralized manufacturing facility has to be there, and raw material imports has to have a zero GST. Of course, Nirmala Sitharaman madam will not like this at all, but I'll try to convey this. Indigenization of key raw materials is crucial, that we have already spoken about. And one of the insights came that this is a very heterogeneous field. I think Dr. Dinesh Kundu made this point, and it has a lot of different paradigms, NK, CAR-T, and others, and it all requires different kind of procedures and processes. And there may not be a common denominator, which actually we'll have to actually figure out. And Biofoundries should have flexibility for operations of different type of products and procedures. The questions that were raised were: do we need GMP for animal studies? Do we need, do we need to consider non-animal models also? Getting human trials factors have to be considered. Then we heard from ABLE, Association of Biotech-led Enterprises, about how they are creating a report to enable national policy on different aspects. I'll not go into the deep. Actually, you'll get the report from him later. Some of the important aspects related to, and I can say that we covered 4 areas: clinical innovations, affordable care, ecosystem synergy, manufacturing models, sustainability, and talent. But while discussion, I saw that it's all intermingled. So I did not want to cover separately. So I'm just making a point in a uniform way. Somebody mentioned about supercomputers for modeling. I think Dr. Kishore, for startups and all, which is actually very good. And I said that Biofoundries should evolve to enable all this. Government has to create such facilities, because startups and industry may not be able to create the facilities for manufacturing and creating this lentiviral facility and all. I think that came from Dr. Subbu, which is very, very important, because as he said, one person cannot do everything. Components have to be there which come together to create a whole system. Right now we are funding, as many people suggested, the whole project, the whole product. The component wise we are not looking at, which is a great suggestion that has come from here, from this. And because these are complex pathways, many factors have to come together. One single applicant or one single innovator cannot actually do this. And even if he does, as Subbu was saying, he may not do it rightly because he's not specialized, or that person is not specialized for it. So specialization is the key. And we talked about how Germany does this through Mittelland's concept model, etc., through kind of MSMEs. For talent and manpower training, there were several suggestions like annual events and workshops, conferences, etc., dedicated to CGT has to be there. National CGT fellowship program, somebody mentioned, open innovation call, grand challenges, and so many things. What we do for any area, CGT specific calls we can do. And there should be mission CGT program. Actually, it has already started. Actually, Sonia has hinted about that. So we already are working with ICMR to create a CGT mission program where all these components will come together in a seamless flow, and government will be actually supporting it. It will be like specific area-wise in a mission mode. So that would be really good, actually. One of the other important aspects which was touched upon was bringing technologies from outside. If we are not able to develop technology so fast, so nicely, we can always negotiate for technologies available at the lower cost from outside and work and develop in our own settings and develop our own capabilities. I think China did the same thing earlier, and now they have created this whole excellence but they did something which was a little unethical. They kicked out the people who who were teachers for them, and then they developed their own. People say that they have stolen many of the things. But that's history has to, remember that, and history will tell us what will happen to such countries. So BIRAC can create a working group to connect startups and, industries together. That was one suggestion came. So all these are very, very important suggestions, and as you all are invited for the CGT conference that we will have the workshop on 6th November. We will again delve into it with much more rigor, because armed with these concepts and ideas, we'll be actually making it more and more impactful for the next sessions. Thank you so much, and it's really nice to have you all and interact with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll have a few words of reflection from Dipanvita.
Nothing more, because we are waiting for the next session.
Okay,
Thank you so much,
Thank you, and thanks to everyone.
We break for tea, but the next session starts convening now.
And our chair has to fly.
Here, 30 seconds. Please come here.
Another.
I think we will sit. We'll sit.
You just sit and we will.
Oh, you can also come.
This is the best you can focus. Please.
I am Dr. Priyankana Mukherjee. I manage the bio-incubation facility in the Bangalore IKP Knowledge Park Center. And in last 1 year, we got very much interested in the smart protein sector, and we started getting a lot of smart protein companies reaching out to us for support. And last year, we had a similar discussion to understand what are the challenges the startups are facing. And what came out as a major challenge was regulatory guidelines. Startups, when we talk to startups, they say that there are no regulatory guidelines. We don't know how to approach FSSAI. And when we talk to the FSSAI officers, they mention to us that we don't have enough applications to work on such problems. So that led us to think that maybe this year we focus majorly on the regulatory aspect and also how we can collaboratively work together to address the challenges of the startups. And I'm really glad that all of you could join us today. And I hope that we make some actionable, outcomes of this meeting. We have all the key stakeholders in this room today. And we really want to make sure that something comes out of this meeting. Smart protein sector, all of you are aware, all of you know. It is a very promising opportunity when we are talking about nutrition, and in next 10 years, we believe that at least we will have one component of novel food in our plates. We are seeing that happening in abroad. In UK, they already have this target where they want one smart protein product in every plate in next 3 years. So that's their target. And we are hoping that a similar target we will also have in next 10 years. But when we are, talking about novel food, there's a lot of lack of clarity on how to approach. And if the startups get first-hand information on what they should do, I feel that it will help them to build the products in a confident manner, which will be useful for them to develop and take them to the market seamlessly. So I will not spend a lot of time on what we want to achieve, but I'll just briefly tell you about IKP. IKP is a 25 years old organization. We are based in Hyderabad and Bangalore. We work with startups day in and day out, and we try to see what are their requirements and develop programs to support them. Sometimes these are in partnership with the government, like BIRAC, DBT, and other organizations. But many a times, these are IKP initiatives, and I'm proud to say that the Smart Protein Initiative was supported by IKP Knowledge Park, because our mission, as I mentioned, is to support innovative ideas, and we are really working hard to make sure that our startups get the right kind of advice, right kind of support. And we have supported more than 1,500 startups directly, and we are connected with more than 15,000 startups through our programs, through our reach. If I go to the Smart Protein Initiative, which we started around a year and a half back, the key trends that we saw, we all know it's a sunrise industry. There's a huge global investment that is changing the way the products are being developed. There is interest from domestic side also. We have recently seen Bio E3 policy, which features smart protein as one of the major areas. And we feel and we believe that it has a huge market potential. We have around 100 startups doing different things. Some people are making ingredients, flavors, fragrances, various other things, and using novel technology. But what we commonly see is they are facing challenges in regulation, regulatory uncertainty. Of course, cost, funding are a different aspects altogether. But how can we make these startups ready and make the change in the system to make sure that they get the right kind of information, right kind of support? So IKP Center, as I said, we established in 2024, and we have around 8-9 startups who are physically using the lab. We have developed partnership with Good Food Institute, which is our very strong partner in working for the startups. We have R&D facilities dedicated for smart protein work. And also we have a bunch of investors who are looking at smart protein companies. We are also connected with various other companies who are benefiting from the work that we are doing. And regulatory support is something we really want to provide to our startups. And also there are a lot of other aspects that we will discuss. So the main gist of this meeting that we believe is to help startups fearlessly go about the regulatory approvals and foster cross-sector partnerships and strengthen them to become globally competitive. This is the overall idea. And we have a team from GFI, Astha, who is, again, helping me with putting this together. But we will start with our key members, the key stakeholders who we believe are doing a lot of work already and trying to change the game for the startups. So I will request Mr. Dr. Amit Tripathi from DBT to say what you think we should be doing, and also, of course, what DBT is doing and what you are thinking to do for the startups.
Thanks, Priyankana. So, as you all are aware, I think the slides have to be loaded. So, the Bio3 policy, the biotechnology for economy, environment, and employment, was approved by the Union Cabinet last year, 2024. And in the Bio3 policy, there is one component which is specifically dedicated to smart proteins, that is smart proteins, as well as some nutraceuticals, so functional foods. And in that component, we have identified through a lot of brainstorming some priority thrust areas. So you just put it on this slideshow. Yeah. So please go ahead. So go ahead. So I think most of you are aware of the Bio3 policy, and it is basically promoting a circular bioeconomy in the country. And many of the things which have been so far been manufactured using chemicals and chemical processes have now to be shifted to biological processes which are more energy efficient as well as less carbon intensive. Next. So this I have already spoken. Next. So as you can see, the second sector is on functional food and smart proteins, and we support research and innovation under three categories: discovery and innovative research to support creation of advanced biosynthetic platforms for development of bio-based products, bridging the gap for scale-up wherever leads are available and their TRL level is sufficiently high, say 5 or 6, to successfully establish pilot scale projects for technology at proof of concept stage. And the other aspect is setting up of Biofoundries and biomanufacturing hubs and bio-AI hubs to accelerate the development and validation and commercialization of bio-based technologies. Next. So as I said, smart protein is one of the sector in this, and I believe Astha would have spoken about this, and you all know what are the benefits of smart proteins coming into our plates. They have a lower carbon footprint, they save water and land resources while being produced as compared to the traditional protein sources. More importantly, they address protein deficiencies, which is very common in developing economies, and they support biodiversity, and they have a huge economic advantage. Next. So through a lot of brainstorming and discussion sessions with many of the experts, industry, academia, as well as GFI India, we identified some thrust areas in each of the three categories of smart proteins identified on the basis of the source in which the smart proteins are derived from. For example, in the plant-based category, there are concerns related to yields of protein from the newer source materials. So you cannot use the same pulses for extracting the proteins because they have to be consumed also. So you have to use newer source materials like minor pulses and hemp, as well as some insects and so on. So the protein profile of also plant-based proteins is not very complete in terms of the amino acid, essential amino acid content, and there are issues related to digestibility and bioavailability, which we are aware. There are some anti-nutrients in plant-based products which need to be taken care of, as well as allergens, and often there are complaints that there is an aftertaste or off flavor which need to be addressed to improve the palatability of these products. Now the other question comes is the texture, because those who are making the plant-based meats, so they have to be tasting like meats, although it's not meat exactly, they are analogs. So the texture of the protein ingredient in the final product should resemble the animal-based products, so that the adaptation by the consumers is more to these products. Similarly, in the cultivated, cell culture derived cultivated meat analog sector, there is a challenge in developing myogenic cell lines and animal serum-free culture media, the components, the growth factor mimetics, the bioprocess integration. Similarly, as compared to the traditional sources, the scaffolds needs to be designed so that they taste like the traditional meat sources. And there are scale-up challenges, and the process needs to be cost-effective. In case of the fermentation derived, there are challenges related to strain engineering, feedstock optimization, dairy, precision fermentation, and production of dairy-free milk and dairy analogs. It's very cost-intensive as of now. And in case of the single-cell proteins, there is a high concentration of nucleic acid, unpleasant color, and secondary metabolites. Across all the three sectors, there are concerns related to safety and toxicity assessment. So that's what the regulators are also worried. And I think JFI India published last year a report on plant-based smart proteins, in which they specifically looked into the impurities and the other ingredients apart from the protein. And they said that there is a lot of salt content in some of the products. That's one example. So that report is there out there for reading. Then the end product formulation is also a challenge, and characterization and manufacturing at scale. So scale is a very big challenge that startups would know in this case. So I'm going to show you two innovative examples, and through those examples, I would like to impress upon the fact that the regulation has to keep pace with the technological development, so that we are not lagging behind in our product commercialization. Next. So a very good example is precision fermentation based animal-free dairy. So we all know the world loves dairy, and it's a 1 trillion industry today. However, sustainability is an issue, and because high GHG emission and going by the estimates of population, as well as the requirement of cattle, as well as other milk giving animals, it is not sustainable. So we need alternative ways to produce dairy analogs, and one way is to do it through precision fermentation, because it is very sustainable, it's less carbon intensive, free of the risks of viruses as well as antibiotics, hormones, etc., and it is scalable. So lab-based milk will be a reality sooner than later, and we need to keep up with the technology. Similarly, there is another aspect which is next, which is really in the experimental stage right now, that is food from thin air. So it's very difficult to believe it today, but I am told by many of the scientists who vouch for this technology that we can actually produce food from thin air in a bioreactor. You can press the next. And next. Yeah. So in a bioreactor, and in which you will put simply air, water, carbon dioxide, electricity, and an extremophile in a bioreactor, which will lead to micronutrients as well as macronutrients, including proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and which can be translated into various food products. They have applications like on-demand food, disaster relief, military operations, space explorations, etc. And as with other smart protein products, they have the same advantages, except for, apart from the fact that they are immensely affordable because they are created out of nowhere. Not literally, but in a sense so. And it creates a supply chain resilience. So these are the few thoughts which I am going to put forward with you, because this is a very engaged and educated audience. I know Bharat is there, Dr. Ullas is there, Dr. Sonia is there. So we address some bit of regulatory challenges in a conclave which we organized last year, in which GFI also was a partner, and Dr. Sonia was coordinating that conclave. And we first of all categorized the smart protein products in terms of the regulatory status. And I know FSSAI is here. So the plant-based protein products have a fairly straightforward route to the market. They are classified as a proprietary food, although there are concerns which I will tell you later. The other two categories, the fermentation-derived and the cell culture-derived proteins, are presently classified under the non-specified food, under the food product standards and food additives, the NSF regulations. So, next. So in case of all these three categories, through the conclave, we came up with a recommendation paper, and which spoke of the challenges across these sectors and what needs to be done. So maybe you can deliberate it on. These are some pointers. For example, in the plant-based proteins, the labeling is an issue. The other issue is of impurities, as GFI India reports last year says. So many of the standards for the impurities in terms of the per day consumption or per gram body weight consumption are not well established, I believe. Then the GM grass labeling is another concern. In case of the fermentation derived, there has to be clarity in safety and labeling standards. Then consumer awareness needs to be promoted. And in line with the global regulations, we need to adopt some regulations so that the startups and the industry know in advance what to do to clear the regulatory pathway. And similarly in the case of cultivated meat, because these two are mainly, the source is different, but the production methods are more or less same. So, and similar challenges, apart from some specific challenges related to cultivated meat, like 3D bioprinting aspects and so on, are there. So I think it's a good forum to deliberate on all these aspects, and FSSAI, Dr. Sonia and others would shed more light onto this. Next. Thank you so much.
Dr. Amit. Now I would invite Dr. Sonia Gandhi from BIRAC, because she mentioned that they are already working with FSSAI and DBT on framing some, guidelines. So can you shed some light on the work that is being done already, so that we just don't repeat what you are doing already? So, yeah.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Priyankana. And I would say GFI also, Astha, because I know you have invited me because of the background work which we have been doing with GFI, DBT. Of course, FSSAI is also part of it. So, Dr. Amit has already detailed out the series of work and the recommendations which have come out of the regulatory conclave which we did last year. First of all, I'm not an expert from the smart protein as such. I'm representing here as a head of the regulatory affairs and the policy advocacy division of BIRAC. So my perspectives will be very focused towards the regulatory angle and the manufacturing challenges which can impact the regulatory processes and all. So I will, whatever I will say today will be restricted towards the regulatory and all, and most probably you will also take some kind of recommendations. Okay, so we all know that the smart proteins represents the next frontier in the sustainable food system. And with the rising population in India, definitely we need a sustainable food mechanism in the form of alternative proteins or smart proteins. And we need to integrate these things into the mainstream nutritional strategies. At the same time, what I have observed from the GFI reports and from our regulatory conclave also, that we have more than 100 startups in the ecosystem, already working in these three sectors: plant-based, cultivated, fermentation-based. But at the same time, the funding which is available from the DBT under the BioE3 policy, plus also from the other programs of BIRAC, is currently limited. So we need to enhance that specific thing. So this is something which has come to us also as a recommendation, and if Priyankana, you can actually take this as a recommendation from this roundtable, will actually help a lot of startups, in fact, developing the full ecosystem of the smart proteins. So I can actually see some of the startups who have been funded by BIRAC also. I have 5 names which are doing quite a good work, like Fix 44, Clear Meat, in fact, Zero Cow Factory from Surat. This is something which I've never heard about these things that, I know, but I never heard about this company that they have already created and commercialized the animal-free milk, and they are importing also. So Good Dot is one of the company who are actually selling the vegan chicken. So when we usually go to the various platforms related to the smart protein, we always hear from the Secretary, sir, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, and Minister, sir, that, in near future will be the plant-based chicken, right? And if we need the plant-based chicken, there are multiple aspects which we have to take care of. It's not only about the ethics, it is also about the cultural changes, which, in terms of the consumer behavior, in terms of the consumer awareness. So we need to change all these aspects. So so these are few companies which I have actually written down in my notes. But at the same time, again, coming back to the regulatory aspects, in the regulatory system, as mentioned by Dr. Amit, currently these things are, the smart proteins are actually considered by FSSAI as a NSF, non-specified food, the proprietary. And we usually the FSSAI deals it on the case-to-case basis, right? So we don't have any specific guidance document. So this is a demand from GFI. In fact, last time when we met, I asked clearly to the GFI, it was our first meeting, I think. So I was assuming that we have a COA, the Certificate of Analysis for Smart Protein. So I asked that you're working from so long in this domain, please give me a COA. And then you just said that, we don't have anything like that. So COA is considered, see, I'm from the biopharma domain, okay? So COA is considered as a very basic document which is required for the release of any specific product in market. So it actually defines all the parameters for the release. So if we don't have a COA, then how can we actually move forward in this specific area? So that's a request from all of you, that if you know the various parameters which are required for the release, for the manufacturing authorization, or for the approval from the clearance from the FSSAI, then please give some suggestions about the limits. Limits can be for the contaminants, heavy metal, allergens, antibiotics, all these things. For the fermentation-based, precision fermentation-based products, we need these kind of limits to be set. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the FSSAI also to approve all these things. So I need some suggestion. I request all of you to please give us some suggestions which can actually help Priyankana to make a kind of recommendation from this roundtable, which we can further put up to the Secretary, sir. And I will actually come back to what we are planning to do, but let me first finish my points on the regulatory. So the second aspect is about the safety assessment. So that's very important. The safety assessment is something which, without safety, we can't even imagine that a product goes as a eatable, right? So including the quality assurance, can we make a document which can actually highlight right from the basic checkpoints, the quality control checkpoints, which can define each and every manufacturing process, right from the cell line development. I'm talking about specifically about the fermentation, or in sometimes it can be applied to the cultivated area also. So for these cell line development, then precision fermentation, harvesting, labeling and packaging again has a multiple issues, then distribution. So each and every activity of the product development, can we define some process parameters or quality check parameters which will help the industry to actually move forward in this direction. Now coming to the labeling and packaging, yes, it has to be consumer centric. Labeling guidance document is required. But the most important aspect is the global integration. Because currently, if you look at the demand, the ecosystem in India, the demand for in India, the demand for such products is not high. And most of the startups are actually relying on the export of their material. So if we have to export, if we want to increase the global trade, then definitely it has the regulations have to be harmonized. So FSSAI has to actually think about aligning with the codex, with EFSA, with Singapore, because they are quite ahead in this domain. So definitely this is my last point. So we need a global harmonization mechanism wherein we can actually, the startups can actually benefit with the export.
Thanks, Dr. Sonia. So this meeting is here, we have organized to do exactly the same. Let's hope that we come up with some action plans, some, things for us to also, catch up, and also for the government organization. So now I would request Mr. Faraz, Mohammed Faraz, Assistant Director, Technology, FSSAI, to tell us about, is FSSAI thinking about reforms, or what's the plan? What can we expect from FSSAI, especially when we are talking about around 100 startups working on novel ingredients, novel categories? What they should, expect in next, say, 5 years?
Thank you, Priyankana, for having me here. Talking about novel food, as ma'am already said, we have a regulation in place through which we give approvals to the food which are not specified anywhere in the current existing regulations. For that, definitely, since it is a novel food, we'll requiring certificate of analysis, toxicologically safe data, and that is most important thing that is required, because any food which we are approving here will directly go to a consumer. And the consumer safety is the most important thing for us. We are very much open to the innovation. FSSAI is fully committed to support the innovation, but that has to be aligned, with the food safety and public health. As ma'am already told, that SOP is already in place in form of regulation. Food safety and standard approval of non-specified and novel food is already in place. We have given approval to about 300 such products which are not specified, or they are novel in nature. So if you follow that SOP, so the mandatory requirement are certificate of analysis and safety data. Other documents are also required. But these two documents are very important. As sir has already told, that there are concerns regarding the new novel product, especially talking about the novel proteins, such as metabolites, presence of metabolites, and concentration of nucleic acid, as sir gave the examples, and in the impurities present in plant-based protein. So before sending any product into the market, for consumer to consume that, it's really important to assure its safety. So we definitely invite all the innovators to send us application with the supporting data that these products are safe. Definitely we have a group of scientists, expertise, who review these applications very rigorously, and definitely will approve such product if there is no concern regarding safety and any impurities in it, and is it safe for consumer.
Sure, but I am actually representing the startups that we work with, and what I understand from them is there is a lot of ambiguity. They don't know what kind of data is required. So I think there's a lot of gap. Maybe it's a communication gap, or awareness gap, or FSSAI requires some reforms. So, just wanted to know, are you thinking on those directions? Is there any platform for you to interact with such startups, understand their problems? Because this is a common issues that I'm listening, timelines, no clarity on what they should go about to apply for a particular category. So how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah, of course. See, there is always, development and innovation in the regulatory aspect as there are innovation industries. So once the product is coming into the market, people are starting developing new product, we came up with the regulations. No doubt there are gaps. So we also look into it and we are trying to fulfill the gaps. Like you said, if there is any point where we can interact with the innovator and the manufacturers. So I'll tell you that we are getting like 10 to 12 mail every day on our, dedicated emails, and we are replying to each and every of the emails. We have also started, a stakeholder consultation kind of thing. We are keeping it on every alternate Wednesday at FSSAI. There is a schedule calendar which we have posted on our FSSAI website also. So there we are, solving all the concerns which a particular manufacturer or industry is having. They are coming with such, questions that how to apply, when to apply, what documents are required. So we are sitting with them and we are, solving all their issues. Recently, we came up with 2 or 3 more issues, such as in our regulation, there is a requirement of submitting post-marketing surveillance data. And we also require human intervention studies. We are working on it also, so that we can come up with the guidelines for carrying out clinical studies for food. There are, guidelines for carrying out the clinical studies for drugs, but for food, it is not anywhere in the world actually. There's no guideline to carry out human intervention studies anywhere in the world. So we are working on it. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I would invite Astha from GFI to talk about their work and also lead the discussion.
Right. So initially there were only 300 standardized foods. It evolved, 2016 nutraceutical came in, alcoholic beverages, and so on and so forth, right? Even for that matter, your energy drinks initially had to go through the what was back in the days called product approval process. But now there is a standard. So same thing, probably a lot of these products are going through that non-standard food or product approval, whatever. So is there some timelines where standards will actually be in place for some of these smart protein products?
Yes, sir, there will be. Actually, the process of developing any standard is they totally depend on how the product is being sold in any country. If there is a consumption of a product at a higher level, or if there are a lot of industry which are manufacturing and selling such products in the country, then definitely we'll frame a standard for this. But as we see now, there is no data available with us. Neither the manufacturing data, nor the safety data, nor the consumption data. So definitely the standard would be based on.
But we are facing a chicken and egg kind of a thing, right? So because the framework is not there, we are not seeing enough startups or enough products in the market.
No.
So how do we break that?
Definitely, initially we will be giving approval to product, company-wise, as we are giving now. In 4, 5, whatever years, as you said, if we are having several approvals, then definitely we'll frame a standard for that. That we are following now also.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Priyankana, for setting the context, and to our esteemed speakers for further elaborating upon what I'm going to build upon now. When we talk about alternative proteins, I think BioE3 policy particularly has defined smart proteins, which is one of the thematic areas, as Dr. Amit pointed out, and that includes fermentation-derived and cultivated meat. When we talk about these products, the status of smart protein regulatory approvals in India when it comes to plant-based is quite clear. These are proprietary food products. There are over 100 plant-based active Indian startups. There is a non-specified foods regulation, and the fermentation-derived products, both precision fermentation and biomass fermentation, fall within the non-specified food framework. And as you can see, FSSAI has already approved 4 such products, 1 precision fermentation, which is Perfect Day, and 3 biomass fermentation products. There hasn't been a cultivated meat approval yet, but there are several Indian startups that are at a very advanced stage of research and development. Further, I firmly believe that the non-specified food framework, which also contains a novel food category, is where cultivated meat would squarely fall and could get approved. However, we have noticed that there's a hesitation from startups because of lack of clear guidance on what data is to be submitted as a part of their dossier. Building upon this, when we talk about the literature that is already available, safety literature, safety assessment, particularly for regulatory dossiers, organizations such as FAO, also national regulators have put up several assessments, papers. For instance, if we speak, and several papers have been supported by national regulators such as Singapore Food Agency, SFA. One of them is a SAMI framework, which provides a list of ingredients that are used in cultivated meat and the safety assessment of them, which requires further data and which does not. That is just one example. There are several such examples that can be utilized, and these papers can be utilized to build upon. This shows that we are actually making forward strides. This shows that regulators are actively looking at alternative proteins, particularly precision fermentation and cultivated meat, and trying to analyze and proactively understand where their regulations need to be modified, where they need to define terms and labeling, and where they need to bring forth further regulations. When we talk about the global regulatory landscape, and I won't go into all of them due to paucity of time, but if I could highlight certain excellent developments that have happened in the recent years. Starting from the top left, the US now has 5 approved cultivated meat products, which includes seafood, cultivated pork fat, and chicken. So those are 3. Apart from that, Israel has also approved cultivated meat, as has Australia. And apart from approving cultivated meat, Australia, New Zealand's regulator, FSSAI, has gone one step ahead. And they have actually modified their standards. So further approvals in Australia will take less than half the time that the first approval took, which was some 2.5 years. Apart from that, EFSA has published papers. I'm going to come to Singapore and UK in a minute, but South Korea has also defined fermentation-derived, plant-based, and cultivated meat, and an application has been filed in South Korea. They have also established these regulatory-free zones to encourage innovation. This is just few of the developments that have been happening. There's so much more, so many more developments that have been happening, be it in Brazil, be it in Thailand, be it in Japan. I think just to talk about 2 standout examples of collaboration. Future Ready Food Safety Hub, short form of that is FRESH, is a joint alliance and a joint partnership between 3 agencies, basically the regulator, which is SFA, public researcher, which is A*STAR, and academic body, which is NTU, to collectively and proactively build capabilities in food safety and risk assessment science. And this is not a new initiative. They established it before cultivated meat products were actually approved, and they engage with companies from the get-go, from the very inception of the idea, keeping a very open bridge and channel of communication between the industry and the regulator to ensure that safety is not thought as an aftermath, but from the very beginning when the product is being developed. The second excellent example of a collaboration is Regulatory Sandbox, and this is quite recent. In fact, it was just last year in October when the UK regulatory body FSSAI, my apologies, announced it, and it was in March this year that they established it. So the Sandbox project, which is the first of its kind in Europe, comprises of scientists, regulatory experts, academic bodies, trade associations, and 8 cultivated meat companies, not just from UK, but from across the world, which includes companies like Gourmet and Wow. And Wow has already received approval in 2 geographies, which is Australia, New Zealand, as well as Singapore. Very important thing to note is that this project is for 2 years, wherein 2 companies will work with the regulator and their dossiers will be scrutinized as a part of this project. However, the sandbox is not designed to accelerate path to market for any one company, but to help the regulator establish long-term guidance so that cultivated meat reaches the market with a very robust safety assessment for consumer benefit. It's not just the regulators, but also multilateral agencies that have been proactively working and having conversations, and I'm aware FSSAI is already involved in those conversations quite actively. New Food and Production System, NFPS agenda. NFPS, by definition, contains alternative proteins, all 3 modalities. That is being proactively taken by Codex, and as a result, an electronic working group, which has been led by Singapore, China, Korea, and South Arabia, on discussion, to discuss a paper and to then establish guidelines on food safety assessment of cell culture media components, is currently working. FAO, as I already mentioned, has been proactively holding meetings in several geographies and is very interested in collaborating with national regulators like FSSAI to organize stakeholder consultations. And apart from that, of course, FAO has also published data and assessment, for instance, food safety assessment on cultivated meat, which I think was published some 2.5 years back, and quite recently, last year, another paper on precision fermentation. I think this sets us perfectly for the next round of discussion that we are about to have. So the BioE3 policy has mentioned smart proteins to be one of the 6 thematic areas to drive biomanufacturing and economic growth. A clear regulatory path to market has been identified as a key component for achieving the vision laid out in the BioE3 policy through harmonization, as Sonia pointed out, of regulations with global standards and interministerial collaborations. Building on that very intent and the path set down in the BioE3 policy and the discussions organized by the FSSAI at the Global Food Regulators Summit this year, we have invited experts today who are in the middle of this revolution that could springboard India into achieving its bioeconomy targets and also contribute to food security and safety. The core work may be done by the ministries, but government, academia, industry collaborations would be crucial to plugging the data gaps and build models that would serve to assist the apex food regulator in India, the FSSAI. Before we discuss collaborations, we must understand the challenges and take a look at possible solutions that could work in India to solve for them. So for this discussion and for the first prompt, I would like to start with the industry. And I would like to start with you, Bharat. Excellent. Would you like to talk a little bit about the challenges that you've been facing and that you would like to highlight?
Sure. Thanks, Astad. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Maybe I'll start with a little bit of context of what we do and then segue into a couple of points that have already been made, and then maybe speak deeper about the challenges that we are currently facing. I'm the founder of a company called Fix44. We fall squarely in the second bucket that you saw in the slide, which is precision fermentation derived proteins.
We started off making animal-free whey protein, just like Perfect Day, which has secured approval from FSSAI. And we've gone on further to make novel proteins. One of them, what we call sway, which is a modified version of a whey protein, which is also sweet in taste, so that it's both a dairy protein and a sweet protein. So that gives you a context of what we do. We use microbial fermentation to do that. We genetically modify these microbes to be able to make these proteins, and we ferment them, we harvest them, and then we separate the protein with the intent of creating an ingredient that would eventually go and get formulated in a food product. Now, we are a 4.5-year-old company, and as you can imagine, a journey for a startup that is working whether in precision fermentation or in cultivated meat is that unless you show traction with the regulator, with scale-up, and with customer, all three, you can't continue to raise funds, and it is a very capital-intensive endeavor to build a meaningful business, a meaningful product in this space. And each of these is actually linked to the other. When we go to customers, they ask us about where we are with the regulator. When we go to find money for scale-up, they ask us about where you are with the customer, which again brings us back to the regulator. And then if you think about our journey for the past 4.5 years, we've done what we believe characterization, in-house characterization, outside agencies characterization. We've done mineral analysis, heavy metal, aflatoxin, mycotoxin, dose finding study in rat model. We've done all of these studies, and we believe, based on what we see in terms of dossier submissions, especially with FDA, because that is what is visible to us, that we are ready from a regulatory approval point of view, we are ready to go to the regulator. However, I must thank Astha for using that word. We are very hesitant to go to the regulator, especially in India. And the reason is because we learned from discussions with others that it is a very black box like process. It's almost like a visa interview. You submit everything, then you wait for a response, and the response could as well be that it is not approved. Whereas when we hear about regulatory engagement with SFA, Singapore, or US FDA, which has a self-affirmed GRAS process, it appears and is a lot more friendly because of two reasons. A lot more clarity about what the expectation is. In fact, all of the analysis that we did is based off of what we saw in the dossier submitted by companies to FDA, to Israel's agency, to SFA, and to EFSA, which is Europe. And we don't even know if that is good enough for us to go for approval in India or not. And what we would greatly appreciate is, like Singapore has a pre-submission consultation, where even before you go and submit, you show all the data that is available, and instead of preparing a submission, submitting and waiting for a reply 6 months, 9 months down the line saying that, you know what, you don't have this, and going back and spending a year more to get that data, is it possible for us to get feedback early on so that we waste less time, less money, and are able to get to the market sooner? And by no means do we mean to say that we don't want, like, it has to be safe. If we are putting the product out there, no compromise on safety. But can we accelerate the path to market while ensuring safety, just like SFA is doing, or EFSA is doing, or Israel is doing, or the US is doing, is our main challenge and ask. And the second part is, I think maybe we are probably operating at extremes here. Like in the session before this, there was a brief discussion about why do you need GMP for animal testing. But in case of food, other regulators are actually asking an even more extreme question. Why do you need animal testing? Why can't you do animal-free testing? You're talking about novel food, modern food. When you're talking about modern food, why not modern safety assessment? Why can't you use animal-free testing? Are there ways for you to use computational toxicology data? Are there ways for you to use organ on a chip to test and make sure that it is safe enough for people? And we can't stay behind the curve on that also. When we look at other regulators, in fact, US FDA as well as EFSA have increasingly started to accept animal-free testing data in some aspects, not overall, but that is something that also I would request. If we have clarity, that saves again a lot of time and a lot of money. And that cuts short the path to market for the entire industry, not specifically for one company. So these are the challenges that I would say are the most in terms of concern for startups at our stage. And I would assume that it would be the same for others as well.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Bharat. No, that's okay. Were you going to make more points?
No, I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We'll very quickly move on to Subbu. And just to keep to time, we'll just request everyone to stick to the allocated time, which is about 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Subbu, over to you.
Thank you, Asa. So, I have been in my previous company scaling food proteins for more than 5-6 years now. So we help most of the fermentation-based food protein companies scale up from lab to large scale in Bangalore, in Tumkur, outside Bangalore for 5 years. Almost all the milk and egg that were launched 3 years back, we made in India and exported to the US. So we worked with more than 50 companies and scaled up more than 150 different clones. All of them got approvals based on the products that were made here in India. Almost all. Frankly speaking, some of the approvals in the US, the materials were packed, certified and sent from here. So when it comes to fermentation-based food, one is microbial, the other is cell-based. In microbial, we have an FSSAI approved manufacturing facility where all the ingredients you use for fermentation is food grade. So we buy any sugar or starch or anything we use which is FSSAI certified, we ferment. And clearly, like in case of insulin, which is made using yeast or E. coli, you're making whey or egg protein or collagen or whatever. So in terms of pathogens, etc., it's no-brainer. It shouldn't be there and it won't be there. In terms of nucleic acid, it's very simple, easy to test and establish whether it's there or not there. So some of the purification steps, if there's an agreement that these should be the levels in these proteins, it's very easy in a fermentation process to ensure those are not existent or is reduced to the ppm levels that is needed. Our export rules say that you cannot export this fermentation-based novel protein to any country unless there is a filing or there's an approval in that country. So that allowed many Indian companies to become contract manufacturers where through FSSAI certification of the product in India, we are able to export it into those countries. So to that extent, we thank FSSAI for allowing this to happen, which is allowing Indian industry to become pioneers in manufacturing. So why are people coming to India? Because this is the country where we can actually scale this up and be viable. We are like 1/3 of the population in the world, so very soon, as Sir also mentioned, it's going to happen here and we will consume this. So while Bharat clearly explained what do we need to give, I think there are categories here. For example, dairy products, then there is egg products. In the microbial space, I'm saying, or there is another protein. If that consultation can happen together for that segment of product, it may become a lot more easier for you as well as for the industry to communicate for all dairy proteins what should be the specs. In terms of cultivated meat, it's even interesting problem because it kind of probably is not even GMO, right? It's not a genetically modified organism. You're using the cleanest ingredients to grow those cells. Because if there's any contamination in the system, water, etc., all these cells are going to be toxic and dead. In fact, the specifications of cultivated meat will be so high that no animal cell would be close to the, what can I say, sterile nature of the cultivated meat. So there's a lot more easy nature of looking at it. but it's a little far from immediate action because of the agri-based industry that we have, the animal husbandry we have, so it may require a little broader consultation with FSSAI to do it. Our proposition is that if the product is cleaner than what is available now, and if that specs can be brought, even a range can be specified for the segments, egg, milk, at least 3 important segments, this can become a fast-tracked process. If we can collate the FDA approval documentation and have the consultation, it may become easier as a group rather than one company at a time, because not all startups will have the ability to come and present to you their quality aspects. Some of them may not even know. And I think if we start now, by the time the industry catches up in manufacturing, we will have approvals also. That's my opinion.
Thank you so much, Subbu. And as you made such great points, and Priyankana, perhaps as a follow-up from this roundtable, there's an excellent paper that I was referring to, which is the SAMI list that's been put together by SFA Video Advisors and GFI APAC that classifies these ingredients within different buckets, starting from the safest, which are already established safe, to the ones that need safety establishment. So we need not reinvent the wheel all the time. We will now move on to, we'll come to you now, Yaditya, and would love to hear your thoughts on the prompt.
Yeah, first of all, thanks to IKP for setting up the stage. I just give a quick overview. I just made few note points over here. As a founder of Biofarms, we are working on cost-effective animal-free cell culture media solutions, specifically designed for the cultivated meat industry. So considering the regulatory challenges, at present there is no defined process in India for obtaining or authenticating food-grade animal cell lines. Most startups either relying on their own facilities to build their own in-house cell lines or borrowing these cell lines from the research institutes. But there is no standardized validation or traceability for these cell lines. Before using any cell line for the meat production, it must be independently assessed before applying for FSSAI or any body. The assessment could be species validation or genetic stability of the animal cell lines and must be approved by the recognized body. Having government recognized cell repositories would ensure traceability, safety validation or standard authentication of the cell lines that can be used for the cell-based meat production. Coming to the second challenge, there are few aspects in terms of the media ingredients or the recombinant growth factors that are being fed to the animal cell lines. So as mentioned, this animal-free cell culture media solutions depends heavily on the recombinant growth factors, which are being produced using typical bacterial expression systems. That means they would require any biosafety aspects or biosafety approvals for them. Followed by, however, FSSAI has not approved any GMO-derived ingredients for direct use in food. Maybe we could establish a framework that can assess these recombinant proteins that are being used during cell culture, whether they are absent or present, or maybe at the traceable levels. As mentioned by Asta, under the collaborative development from Singapore Food Agency and GFI, they have prepared a framework called SAMI, which is Safety Assessed Media Ingredients, which defines acceptable levels of each ingredient, maybe in terms of the basic nutrition what we are providing for the animal cell lines. Maybe if you could implement such a framework that scientifically supports the regulatory decisions and ensure consumer safety. And as mentioned by Bharat, if there is any kind of pre-consultation support that provides the cell-based meat aspects or the raw material that are being produced, or maybe a kind of standard checklist that gives data in terms of cell line data or media inputs or toxicity or allergenicity kind of things that helps the startups to fasten up their work. I think these are few points which we would like to address.
Thank you so much, Yaditya. Very quickly moving on to you, Malay.
Hi, good evening everyone. Thank you Dr. Priyankana and Asta for having us here.
So let me just briefly give you an idea about what Prolary is. So we are India's first leaf protein company. We specialize in extracting and purifying functional protein from waste leaf agricultural biomass, and certainly for human consumption only. And having said that, yes, in terms of regulatory, I'll certainly highlight some of our issues, but we have already received FSSAI approval for our ingredient, along with our first patent also be granted. But prior to getting these approvals, I would like to highlight what challenges we faced while going on that track, on that road. So initially there was lack of clarity that whether our product falls in the category of plant-based or made from plants. That was a bigger issue, that which category shall we call our product from. Then somehow, as Bharat clearly highlighted about the possibility of having a consultation like SFA. We kind of hired or contacted few agencies who helped us getting these approvals. So that was a consultation, but not from FSSAI. There was no facility from FSSAI or the government bodies, so it has to be done privately. But yeah, that helped. But if that comes from the government bodies or from FSSAI, that would be more available to the bigger mass of the startups or the bigger mass of the people doing research in this area. Then there has to be, what I felt lack was, what we felt was there is a bit of more collaboration between intra-agency collaboration like DST, FSSAI, and maybe bodies like IKP and GFI. So for framing, every organization or every body will be getting some or the other recommendation from their stakeholders. So coming together and having this interaction or having this intra-agency collaboration will make, will help. I think it will help framing a common guideline and regulation dossier for everyone in the industry. And since we are talking about novel proteins, novel food, smart proteins, so where I felt a lack of understanding was about sustainability. There was no guidelines in terms of sustainability, like about LCA studies or carbon footprint studies. So there was no guidelines regarding that whether it is mandatory, whether it is not mandatory, and how to go ahead with that. So that was one point which I felt while going for the application. But thankfully, Dr. Tripathi, you clearly highlighted for the Bio-E3 policy that has now become mandatory in the Bio-E3 policy. So thanks to BIRAC and the agency for that. Also, lastly, I would like to highlight is same thing what Bharat told, taking a clue from the already set established GRAS or the other approved products and the regulations and the points which gave them that approval. So can we form a common dossier at the earliest, so that companies like us, when we go for approvals, maybe for a second product, third product, or any such thing, so we should not be wandering around, and we should not be referring to anything from USFDA or SFA. We should have our own FSSAI dossier in hand to refer to and to get that approval and be in the market at the earliest, because this takes a lot of back and forth happening. So these are what I would recommend, or challenges which we faced, I would like to highlight on this. Thank you so much.
Can I just ask a quick question, Asta, from Dr. Malay? So you suggested a very good, it's a very good recommendation that we should have a common dossier for, different kind of products, as Subbu also highlighted. I just have a quick question. See, there are only 3 or 4 companies who have actually received FSSAI approval, so they have the dossier ready. So my question is directly to you now. Will you be ready to share that dossier in the public domain?
Yes, if the government, if the regulatory bodies do ask and do frame that regulation or that guideline that whoever is first in the market or first to get those approval, they have to share their experience, not just the dossier, but the overall experience and the challenges faced, how whoever helped, maybe a communication from FSSAI helped, a communication from BIRAC helped, a communication from IKP helped, whatever those things. So we should be happy to share, but that guideline have to come from the bodies. I mean, we as a private entity will not be, I would not be wrong to say that will not be over enthusiastic in sharing from our end in the very beginning.
Yes, sir. Actually, whenever you are submitting any application, you are taking undertaking from FSSAI that your document must not be shared with anyone.
Yes.
Even
So
for
that break has to happen from FSSAI or the concerned bodies. We would not be doing it on our own for sure.
But we just wanted to ask your opinion also. Would you be comfortable in sharing all your data and all your processes?
Provided the IP is not challenged, provided the IP is safe, and the body have to ensure that the integrity of our IP generated, that remains untouched, or nobody infringes on that, then there should not be any. And anyway, if let's say my first patent got approved, now it is in the common domain, so there is nothing to hide anymore. So why not? I mean, we would be happy to share that.
We can always have anonymous forms and anonymous dossier where we get inputs from all the startups, and also with experience from FSSAI, because they are evaluating what exactly they need. Do they need some tweaks in the application? So I think such activity can be pursued.
I just wanted to say it's a give and take. In US FDA, there is no choice. If we provide it to them, at best we can ask them to redact some parts of it which we think are IP sensitive, and it is still at their discretion whether they want to publish or not. They might not pay any attention to it and go ahead and publish, right? And they do it with a good reason that this information becomes available to everyone, and everyone else who's following it becomes easier for them. So everyone as a community benefits from it. So from a startup point of view, I would concur that as long as we are able to mark out the parts that are IP sensitive and may need attention from FSSAI to be redacted, and rest of it is okay to be published and that is honored, I think most of the startups would be okay as long as their IP remains safe.
Go ahead. So I just wanted to say that if that's the case, then definitely FSSAI, DBT, BIRAC, we can come together. And I actually agreed with this Dr. Subbu's point also, that there are 3 areas which are quite common, like dairy, milk-based things, cultivated meat, and the egg. So within these 3 verticals, if we can find out, we can probably make 3 working groups, and we can make a common dossier or a kind of COA or some standards around those specific areas. That will help the industry a lot. In fact, not only industry, the BIRAC on FSSAI also.
Thank you so much for rounding it up perfectly, Sonia. I think that is the perfect segue for me to close this round where the industry was sharing their inputs and thoughts for the first prompt. And we also have legal and regulatory experts here with us. So I would then move on to you, Gautam. Would love to hear from you, zoning out a little bit as a legal expert. Where do you think the challenges lie?
Hello. See, being an IP attorney, I will speak on one of the regulatory aspect, which is biodiversity regulation. Whenever we made startup, even some of those big companies, they are not very much aware of all the facets of the regulation. Now, of course, law has evolved over a period of time in last couple of years, and in 2024, the last amendment in the rules have made it much clearer, but still some regulatory pain points remain. So, in a nutshell, there are 5, 6 steps where you need to take different approval or permission or intimation at the research, commercialization, IP, data transfer. That is another pain point. In a collaborative research, if you want to transfer to your collaborator outside India, you need to take permission, and that is again a pain point. Then if you are using any biological resource overseas, collected from overseas, then again there is a compliance and onus is on you to inform the biodiversity authority. And then there are 2 kinds of guideline, one for Indian companies, another one is for foreign companies, even Indian company but controlled by foreign entities that fall under the foreign company. So however, I'll raise 2 problem area right now in term where there is an interface between patents and IP and Biodiversity Act. Generally what we do at times, you have developed a fermentation process, and just to show that you have used one biological component, as an example, the starting material, which you are not claiming, but for the starting material, because it is in your claim, you need to seek approval for the starting material. So we have several times requested to remove. At least the validation part should not be, applicant should not seek permission for the validated component. Second, another problem is, in IP you always know, you claim Marcus claim, means a group of similar compound you claim under. As an example, in a fermentation process, you are using various, like plant hydrolysate. Second component is your microbial peptides. Now, under microbial peptides, in dependent claim, you said bacillus, peptide derived from bacillus and lactobacillus. So then they will say you have to seek permission from bacillus, you have to seek permission from lactobacillus, whatever. Those I'm not claiming. I am claiming a broad Marcus. That Marcus, whatever I have done, I have used one example, I have given one example. You take permission for that. But if I have 5 such Marcus claim, you should not ask for that. That is again a pain point for the startup companies. These are the 2. But in the last few years, the law has evolved a lot. A lot of pain points have been eliminated. Only thing, the awareness is, it's not up to the mark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gautam. You highlighted aspects that we have not yet covered. So thank you for bringing focus to the National Biodiversity Act and patent, and we were just discussing IP. I think we would love to hear from Dr. Balu Nayak, who's the Deputy Director of FSSAI, and would love to hear his thoughts at this juncture in the conversation.
Yeah, good evening, one and all. Myself looking after enforcement activity of Telangana and the import authorized officer for Telangana and Krishnapatnam Port. Regarding the FSI activities, as my colleague Faraj has explained, but you can represent at any time. Even the licensing, whatever we are issuing the license for the specified product or the regulated, which all the products which are there in the market or whatever, we are giving license immediately. Even Tatkal license also an industry can take. Any industry without approaching any office, just apply the license. Suppose you are an exporter, within a day you can get the license. So that's the way FSSAI is clearly. But thing is, regarding the non-specified products, there is a scientific committee. The scientific committee has to approve. In scientific committee, some expert panels, there would be 10 members or 6 to 10 members, independent scientists will be there. So they have to evaluate the data based on the risk assessment
of domestic or the exported product, whatever the product. So for these smart proteins, as an industry, you can approach advisor of FSSAI and you can write to the CEO. And Faraj has clearly said that we have made that recently you can approach to the headquarters office weekly once or it's monthly once?
Twice.
Monthly twice. Anybody can approach the headquarters or you can write to our advisor. It is very clearly that you can ask any data, whatever. But thing is, the scientific committee has to evaluate very clearly that what is risk assessed with this one. Suppose they have to evaluate what is, suppose lab analysis for this one. Suppose when we take any sample at the market, it should pass, then it should not create any misuse things. Suppose if we take recently, we have came up with the Ayurveda Ahara regulations and fortified regulations in all public distribution system, we are supplying the fortified rice. What happening in the domain, at the domestic level is adulteration is more than what government expected. To be frank, see earlier, recently when government tender has came, 40 rupees fortified rice for 40 rupees they have quoted. How can they supply for 40 rupees? Public distribution system now is very clear that they have made all the checks. Even FSSAI also made all the checks. But even though they are escaping. See, we are not we are not commenting on any industry. The thing is practical. What ground reality is, there is a chance of any adulteration. Suppose if we take paneer analog. Now in the market, whatever paneer we are having, it is not paneer. It is paneer analog. People are coming with paneer analog with hydrogenated oil and some starch, making some analog. It is not harmful. But whatever in the market, in the loose form, it is coming as paneer analog with hydrogenated oil and the starch. We caught the many samples from various states. You can see the handles, social handle of FSSAI, how we are inspecting and how our officers are on the ground. See, that is the practical difficulty. That's what I suggest for the industry. You can make consultation even every state, the FSSAI scientific committee is consulting, having a meeting monthly once or monthly twice. Even we had conducted a meeting last time, national stakeholder consultation at Hyderabad at MCHRD. Our advisor and CEO has attended the program. Such programs you can utilize that. Industry can take the help of FSSAI. It is not that regulator, we are not stringent. We are here to facilitate your business. So that's what the FSSAI. So many regulations has came. Why not this smart protein regulation will come? But thing is, we need data, safety data and other data, whatever the scientific committee needs.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And with that, I'll come to you, Dr. Nupur Soni. We are talking about safety data, generating data. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Before talking about data, I would also like to throw some light about how different agencies have used different regulations and what combination of regulation based on the country as well. And then I'll come up with the 3 important points which I feel should be stepwise on regulation. So first I'll talk about Singapore SFA, which we all know, right? So all their focused approvals are tied to specific products, and it supports the prioritizing the GMP over there. So for Singapore, GMP is one of the important things. Microbiology and residuals is also important. When we talk of US FDA or USDA, they have split it in 2 ways. So for cell banking and production, they have more of FDA guidelines, and USDA for underscoring the need to define agency role and data expectations over there. When we come to Israel, again, there is some on religious aspects to it as well. So they require the GMP inspections and labeling review. Facility inspections and religious acceptability engagements also are considered over there. And when we talk of EU, European one, so novel food structures with comprehensive composition and toxicity requirement. So these are the ways which different agencies are doing. What I think can work best in India is, so I just put up my points across together. One immediate thing that can be done is something as a pre-market dossier licensing. So cell lines provenance, genetic stability, process GMP, which most of them already mentioned, they have already done that, residuals, contaminants, compositional analysis, as Madam you mentioned, basic microbiological safety. This can be something very immediate and pre-market dossier. Then we can also have something as a near-term kind of thing, which is before the initial authorization. It can be a toxicology or genotoxicity panel, or an allergenicity screening, or a shelf life challenge study. Third step can be more towards a post-market step, which is conditions on approvals. This can be exposure monitoring, active post-market surveillance, environmental reporting, or any consumer acceptance follow-up. So if we do it in 3 steps, so even the startups or the companies knows that what stepwise they have to provide, and they're ready with the kind of data. 3 things. One more thing that I also want to mention is making sure that India has a unique dietary pattern. We also have ethnicity, high nutritional deficiency, and strong religious and cultural habits. So a comparative nutritional profiling, consumer perception studies, as Mr. Faraz already mentioned, and some studies which are tailored to Indian population. They should not be options, but they are very important decisions for regulatory approval and market exceptions. I feel these things, if considered in an order, can not only accelerate the products to market, but also help us with the limited resources we have in the country right now to make sure that we are at the level where other countries are in the book now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Nupur. Now we move to the next prompt, which is collaborations and partnerships for a safe and efficient path to market. For this, I would like to invite Dr. Ullas, and we would like to hear your thoughts on how academia can partner with FSSAI, DBT, because when we are talking about safety data, SOPs, how the science community can create a system for FSSAI bodies like that to adapt to what is right, or what is acceptable. There may be deviations from the norms, and how the latest research can change the way we are looking at things today.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know whether it is Asta or Priyanka. Maybe I'll just quickly tell you where I belong so that you will contextualize what I'm trying to say. Basically, I'm a biologist working in the areas of metabolism and aging. We've set up the country's first research center on metabolic disease and aging in TIFR. I'm the director of CDFT, which is Center for DNA Fingerprinting Diagnostics. I'm also holding the additional charge of director of NIB, which of course is important for national animal biotechnology, which has huge implications on protein and nutrition and all that. Now, I've been hearing all the conversations, and in most of these roundtables, what happens is that it's good to vent about what ought to have been done, but I would like to see what should be done. So, since we have all the 3 key ministerial representatives here from FSSAI, BIRAC, and DBT, I think the first thing to do would be, from this part of the thing, is to have a joint task force. Often what happens is we are doing very reactive policies, reactive steps, reactive forms, reactive everything. And thanks to Dr. Gokhale, who's been really a phenomenal visionary leader. I mean, some of us have had very close interactions with him. I think in order to really maximize the importance and the relevance of BioE3, unless FSSAI and DBT, and of course catalyzed by BIRAC and potentially by IKP, if you don't form a task force where you're doing proactive policy definitions. I don't think we're ever going to solve this problem. So I think it's incumbent on you to have this joint task force. And in this task force, given that we are talking about nutrition safety, we should have representatives from, let's say, including CFTRI, NIN, and the organization that, for example, I've built in called Arumda, which is working on metabolic disease and aging. You won't be able to do much of a difference. The second, I would call upon the industry, because again, what I see is trying to do things in a manner in which each of you is struggling and fighting the battles independently. Unlike this, I think industry should make really clever moves in terms of how to engage with the government agencies, identify sectors, and within these sectors, bring together industries or startups which have made significant progress. Otherwise, what happens is that it's each of you is battling these independently, and I don't think it's going to make any difference at all. And no offense to you, government has its own issues, mechanisms, machineries don't move at the pace that all of us would like to do. I mean, I'm a researcher, I have lots of complaints against DBT, ICMR and DST. But I also know from the other side that it's not so easy to move the needle, right? So while we can sit here and say that, oh, this didn't happen, I think we need to be again ahead of the curve and say, help these ministries to come up with a policy that is more friendly to the industry. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Third thing is, this is not necessarily true for smart proteins alone. I think there's a huge industry-academia disconnect. And I'll tell you, academia, by virtue of being academic, will never be able to get the pulse of what the societal requirements are, unless the industry defines what the requirements are and you reach out to the academia. I know it's like, I'm not putting a blame here, but often what drives the scientist is discovery, right? And what drives industry is market. So I'll tell you, if you ask the academia to come up with solutions for the industry, I think we'll make a big mistake, because academicians are actually very bad at thinking about what market needs are, what societal needs are. So I think industry has to reach out to the academia. And in fact, I made already offered something to the GFI saying that I'll be more than happy to host an annual conclave or a symposium. And Amit is somebody whom I've known since a long time, since his student days as well, is that I'll be happy to host this at either CDFD or NIAB. Come, have a thing, identify industries, identify startups, identify people in the academia whom you would like to bring. I'll provide free space. Just get that going. I think otherwise what happens is that we all discuss it here. We feel happy that we aired our angst against each other, and we go back, and I think the battle begins all over again. So I think unless we do this, it's not going to happen. Third thing is something that she brought up is I think we need to have a clear sense of the metabolic and the nutritional requirements. That's why I insist on bringing organizations like Arumda, NIN, ICMR on board at some relevant levels. Otherwise, you're going to have a huge problem in acceptance, right? You can label things, no problem. But apprehensions and perceptions in the public are more difficult to break down. You can still bend FSSAI, you can still go and convince the Secretary DBT to get things done for you. Your files will move, but public perception will not be easy to mend. So I would say unless you do some pilot studies, which again I think the industry has to take a lead with the academia. Academia is more than willing right now to help industry in all its forms. Now, of course, safety and toxicology aspects become very relevant. Here again, if the industry wants, academia will easily put together a set of assays, right? I think we need to champion three things here. One, a dedicated platform where you can create testable kits that will help the industry and which is accepted by the government. And it's better done by a publicly funded organization so that you know that it is in between the industry and the government agencies. So acceptance from both sides are easier. It will help your regulatory clearances. So I think let's come together and say, can we identify one or two organizations, let's say one in South, one in North. I'm going to probably suggest, just out of top of my head, either NIB or CDFT, or let's say NABI in the North, to set up a platform where industry can also fund or put people and get things done. So I think unless you create a pipeline where you know that the data that is coming out from this lab is dependable, reproducible, and acceptable by the industry and the regulatory agencies, I don't think you're going to make a dent. Second is, if you really want to reach out to the academia, the best way is to identify stakeholders. And who are the best stakeholders? Our students and our postdocs, right? I think it's good for the industry and academia to come together and write joint grants. Okay, BIRAC is a fantastic funding agency. DBT through BioE3 is able to do that. But again, academia may or may not be able to come up with such ideas. But if you come up with an idea, yeah, probably out of 10 people, only 2 respond. That's what I was telling the GFI people. But so be it. I mean, 2 will become 5 in the near future. So come up with projects which you can co-fund or seek grants from the funding agencies, where also that will also help catalyze growing next generation people. I think talent is something that none of us spoke about. I think there's a huge lack of talent for small proteins. And so even if you get all your regulatory reforms, I know each of you who are sitting here, you're only probably serving your own purpose. I'm being very, very critical and harsh. I don't think you're catalyzing the movement and the revolution. I think we have to do that. And the third thing is, I think eventually you need to involve more of public health and NGOs, because it's those people who will do your legwork, and I don't see that narrative here. So I think bottom line, identify institutions which can help you foster such collaborations. Reach out to people, like, maybe you have to bang on the doors 10 times. I'm sure it'll open. For the government agencies, my sincere suggestion is that form a joint task force, have regular meetings, bring them on board, understand their needs, be more proactive rather than being reactive. Otherwise, you're not going to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ullas. And this is the first step, I would say, from IKP and GFI to bring all of you together. We actually tried to contact NIN but could not find anyone available. But now I would request Dr. Nilesh Lele to give us a quick comment, because we have already crossed 6:30 and there's an inaugural session at 7, so we need to close in very short.
Thank you. Taking what Dr. Ullas just said, taking that forward and going back in history, right? Probably Dr. RBN and few others might know that prior to 2006, there was no FSSAI. Food business was done as part of prevention of food adulteration, PFA, FPO, and there were around 6 other regulations which got merged into. When 2006, the act was passed as FSSAI Act. 2008, the body was formed. And 2011, 5th August, is when these rules and regulations actually went into picture. So then what happened between 2008 to 11? That's when these standards were found. Right? And if you have seen, there were only 6 rules and regulations, where now I think it has gone up to 21 or 22 or 23, whatever the number is. And within those 6 were one which was called the food standards and additives. And there were only 300 products which were standardized. Like there was a standard for milk, clearly mentioned, bovine, coming from a bovine source with so much amount of fat, so much amount of whatever, SNF, this, that, kind of a thing. So what about, like ma'am just mentioned about nutraceuticals. So what was happening for whey protein that was imported, where the import license only says you can import only the standard food. Yes, sir? Am I correct? So what was happening to the wave protein that was imported between 2011 to 2016 when the nutraceutical regulations became live? They had to go for the product approval route. But then the regulations came in. Similarly, and I don't want to name it, but the largest selling energy drink had to go for a product approval. But now there is a standard for energy drink, right? Of course, because of the hard work they did. Same thing for some of the ingredients like FOS, if you know, fructooligosaccharides, right? It is right now approved only as an ingredient or an additive in bakery products. Because only, and I don't want to name the company, but they wanted to use in their bakery product. Sir is a master of rice bran. He can tell the journey of rice bran oil and how the standards for rice bran were also conducted. So I think the solution here will lie either the three government bodies, DBT, BIRAC, FSSAI come together, or IKP and GFI come together. If there are certain products which can be, I mean, all of us come together. If there are certain products where standards can be created, I'm not saying we'll be able to create a standard for each and every, but if there are certain which products in three categories, if particular standards can be created, and then we sit across with FSSAI and show them that, okay, you have already approved so many companies, so many products, here's some more data, here's data from other countries. And then that will eventually happen. And I had asked the same question to him. He said that if there is enough market, if there are enough players, they will do it. Same thing happened with vegan. Vegan food was already approved. But I think, sir, if I'm not wrong, vegan regulation came in 2018. Yes. Huh? Organic was already there, but the whole Jaivik Bharat again, I think, came in 2018. So that is how it happens. They will have to come and catch up, right? But for them to catch up, the industry has to make a big push. So that's my point, and I hope, sir, I've made as accurate comments as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Lin. Now we move on to Dr. Prasad. He brings the expertise on lipid research, and he was former chief scientist at Center for Lipid Research, and now we are seeing a lot of startups developing fats and oils from fermentation-based technologies. So with your experience working with FSSAI, how do we approach their challenges?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. See, basically, a couple of general points also make, because since the inception of FSA, I am part of FSA. I was sitting in scientific panels of oils and fats, additives, and also in scientific committee. Presently, I am the part of expert committee. And incidentally, I was sitting in BIRAC also several committees, 5-6 years. There is a regulatory committee. They help the industry, particularly in regulation, know what sort of things initially they are supposed to take. With that experience, basically, what I want to really, advise particularly, I really like the comments of Dr. Ullas. See, FSA never there to trouble the industry. So basically, FSA wants to take care of the safety of the foods, they safeguard the consumer. Say, for example, sometime back, around 5 years back, so FSA harmonized something like 10,000 additives with Codex. So I was part of additives at the time. See, so many days we really sat with it. But some of the things, where in Indian condition, which are not really applicable, we removed them, we modified them. So like that, basically what FSA requires with my experience is a well-recognized, either you have to really get the related, international guidelines or regulations or any scientific data, convincing scientific data of clinical studies, or so what Dr. Ullas said, whether you can get from NIN or CFTRI or Indian Institute of Toxicological Research, IITR. If these institutes really create some data, FSA never says no. I know with my experience, some expert committee, sometimes the application will be accepted for first time itself, because if the industry really creates all the data, absolutely no problem. Otherwise, sometimes, even before committee, expert committee, FSA, they do a lot of groundwork. They send a very big letter to the industry saying that these are the gas, please provide. Unfortunately, several times industry is unable to really provide that. See, basically, what I really observed is industry really needs definitely some what you call guidance from the public funded organization. I think you people, you need to really create some sort of a consortium, the industry and public fund organizations, FSSAI, so that really helps the industry. Of course, coming to the what you asked me to talk about oils, briefly in 2-3 minutes I'll tell. See, the particularly microbial oils is becoming very important today because India is importing something like 16 million tons of oil and we are producing only 11 million tons of oil. So that is the reason plant-based oils are not really what you call, not catering us, and it's a long way to go really what you call, no, to really stop imports and become self-sufficient. See, but only problem with today is microbial oils, everywhere there are a lot of problems, particularly downstream processing is quite expensive. Then people should not really aim at producing the ordinary to replace the plant-based oils either for biofuel or for edible oils. That's because last month I was reviewing one, one project of startup. I don't want to really name the funding agency because he was very ambitious, that person, startup. He wanted to mimic the olive oil. What he doesn't know is olive oil contains, because he wanted to have monounsaturated fatty acid rich oil, but olive oil is well known for its antioxidants. So he cannot really mimic the olive oil. See, what I advise is now, as of now, only the high value products like DHA, EPA, arachidonic acid or some cosmetics, that sort of things, I think definitely there is a lot of importance and also high value because they cost something like 8,000 to 10,000 rupees a kilo. Ordinary oils, as of now, I think it's really impossible. I think we should not fund any project for that as of now, unless, because ordinary oils we can produce for 100 rupees a kilo. Biodiesel 100 rupees a kilo. It's impossible using microbial route to really get that sort of a cheaper this thing. See, my advice is when you're really framing a proposal, I think we have to look at the reality. That's what I...
Thank you, sir. Quick comments from Anil. We don't have time, but maybe a sentence.
So, good evening, everybody, and thank you for making part of this event. And I take the enabler perspective, and we are Aspire Bionest, located at University of Hyderabad. And when we are talking about 100 startups working on a smart and alternate proteins and against close to 15,000 bio startups registered in India, it is very minuscule in number. And we need many more infrastructural support agencies so that they could support many of the smart protein startups. Even if you name Proleri or Biome or even Arthro. So we know them now, but when they started the journey, they were having a lot of hurdles. Initial infrastructure is not there. Though we are one of the enabler in the bio incubation ecosystem, but exactly the equipment they require, we never had it. Now we joined the race of IKP Eden with the support of Cytiva, established recently with the Alternate Protein Center. But I think we need some support from the government agencies, and you could identify one neutral institute, like it could be CDFD, NIAB or University of Hyderabad. Maybe you could augment the existing facilities because we have a lot of bio equipment available, but exactly few of the equipment that are missing for this particular research, maybe you could augment it because creating for small number of startups.
Thanks, Anil. I think that will require a different set of discussion, and we can take that forward. Any comment from you, Krishnan?
I'll just make 2 points, make it quick. So Narishu is known for being the first company to cultivate quinoa chia in India for the first time. So it's more than 10 years, and we take pride in being indigenous. With the same spirit, we happen to enter into the biosmart or the vegan industry because of one acquisition. We tried to replicate the same. The project was to have proteins, indigenous proteins that fits the Indian diet as opposed to whatever we are doing right now. With this enthusiasm, we started this project 2 years back, and we were shell-shocked to know that there is no indigenous manufacturer of even vegan protein. And more than 80%, 90% of the protein that we consume is actually imported. So, and after last 6 months or 8 months, fortunately with our partnership with some private institutes, we are able to make some progress. Because here the point is not just about being indigenous, because whatever protein that we are importing, it is dysfunctional. It doesn't blend into our diets. That's point one. Second, last, I'll make it with less than one. You took a lot of examples from Singapore, and I carry a lot of Singapore baggage. Because I'd say it's baggage because I've been a student of NTU, I've worked with A-Star. So it goes beyond developing products. what we have learned in this industry is developing product is one, but commercializing is even tougher. And Singapore government does it extraordinarily well, right from inception all the way to commercialization. There are incredible lessons that we could learn from there as well.
Thanks. Now we have 5 minutes, and I would request Sneha to recap. Sneha, MD, GFI, and we have worked as a partner, and this is one of the event that we have been planning for almost
a while now.
Yeah. So very happy that we could bring all of you together. So over to you, Sneha, to summarize and give us some action points so that we, make this meeting really successful.
Thank you, Priyankana. And just want to say thank you to everybody. I know it's quite late in the day and everybody's energies are tanking. So I really appreciate all the insights that we've heard across the board. Special thank you to Faraz, Dr. Amit, Dr. Sonia for all of the contributions. I think it's been really insightful to hear your side as well, and of course from the industry. I know most of the folks around the table from industry really well. I think a couple of things stood out. I'll try to summarize as much as possible. Our work at GFI India for the last 6 years since I've been a part, since the very beginning, has been to singularly advance smart protein. That's what we do. We are a think tank. We want to bring as many stakeholders in the sector together and make this journey as easy as possible, given the potential that it holds, not just for the market, but also for people, for planet, for animals. I think from my perspective, one of the things that stood out to me was something that Dr. Sonia said, that DBT, BIRAC, and FSSAI can come together. You all can create basic standards. I think that was in response to something Subbu mentioned also across meat and eggs and milk. And I think that was a summary of what Malay and Bharat also said, that startups are open, they are willing to share their data, they are willing to put their information out there as long as the IP is redacted or protected. I think this is a true signal. This I've seen for the first time, this being mentioned in a forum like this. There's openness of stakeholders to come together and create something, and that is hopefully going to be the start of a wave that's going to lift all boats. I think path to market clarity remains as a point that's come across from all the conversations. I think whilst there has been approvals we've seen on fermentation-derived proteins, of course I feel cultivated meat companies would benefit from some standard guidance. There's a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes, and I feel if academia, companies can work together to create more robust safety data and I love the idea of the pre-consultation to sit with FSSAI and say, does this work? Do you need more? And I think guidance and the excellent, suggestion or the information we learned today about the twice a month open office hours style conversations that happen, I think that's really useful, something that we will also tell stakeholders that we're aware of who are working in this space. I think for next steps for everybody over here, and I'm very conscious of time, I think one was to establish that pre-application dialogue mechanism is what I mentioned. I think there is examples in other jurisdictions, whether it's Singapore, whether it's others, examples that were highlighted, an early engagement between innovators and regulators, having this sandbox style conversation, which I was listening in the cell and gene therapy session as well. Sandbox is a very popular word these days. So I think something like that comes together for novel foods as well would be really helpful. And I think under FSSAI's guidance, under that collaborative dialogue, the pre-market dossier was also mentioned as one of the recommendations. I think that would be really powerful if that's one thing tangibly that we can take forward from this conversation. I think risk-based guidance documents, if there's standard guidance on safety assessment, labeling, what does a dossier need to have, and that pre-submission consultation that we said would be helpful. And the third part, I think, is what was mentioned, Dr. Ullas mentioned around private, public and academic data coming together. So that open sharing, that collaboration, I think that's already happening through the funding calls that we're seeing with DBT BIRAC on smart protein. We've seen academia and industry come together and submit applications. I think there is more That's just the foundation. I think there's more to do there. If regulators, researchers could create those protocols and data repositories so that the burden for this proof of data could be lowered for each new entrant, whoever's coming in. How can we make that happen? I also feel that the consortia-style collaboration that was mentioned between FSSAI, DBT, BIRAC, DST, and for having partners like IKP or GFI India come forth, if there is information we have because we keep on top of the sector that we can provide to you as regularly as is needed. Like, we're more than happy to do that. And I think that can help in framing the guidelines, but also hopefully having some timelines to it as well, rather than having it as an open-ended dialogue. So I think those are a few things I've tried to summarize as quickly as trying to take vigorous notes as we were going along. But I think in closing, if we build a strong regulatory framework that is rooted in science, it is agile, it is enabling, we have so much potential in India from a biomanufacturing perspective. We are very rightly known to be the pharmacy of the world. We've scaled so much when it comes to biomanufacturing. There is so many huge and very achievable claims when it comes to the bioeconomy of India. And I think this is such a crucial cog in that journey. We can become that global leader in smart protein, and that foundation is being laid in conversations such as these. So I'm very thankful to everybody. Hopefully we can follow through on the recommendations that have come up from this, and we're happy to, as IKP and GFI India, follow through on that, maybe share something out, and all we ask is commitment and enthusiasm from everybody around the table. So thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone, and I'm really glad that you all could come today on a Sunday evening to deliberate, and I can promise you that we will try our best to, create some actionable item out of this conversation. Thank you all for your time.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.